here today, Mr. Speaker, that would give me any comfort, nor should it give any other St. Lucian comfort, that they're going to use this opportunity they found on their lap appropriately and to make sure that the young people of this country and the workforce of this country are going to get jobs that they can make careers of, jobs they can raise their families on, jobs in which, yes, they can become international and raise their own standard of living. That should be the aspiration. And I did not hear any of that today, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
So come Friday, right around the Princery from by Parliament, coming across onto Jeremy Street, that area will be deemed a no vending zone. I call on all vendors who currently occupy that area to dismantle whatever pieces of steel, whatever old tarpaulins, whatever old tables they have in the area, because if they are left there, we would have no choice but than to deal with them appropriately.
Flashback.
As the MP for Castries Central, in terms of your vision for the constituency, where do the vendors fit in?
I'll tell you one thing. Nobody will interfere with any vendor anywhere there. Nobody. Walk through Manhattan. Vendors all on the sidewalks.
Yes.
That is what gives a city its character. Nobody under my watch is touching no vendor.
Did you know that the price of fuel was capped at $13.95 per gallon under the UWP? But that cap was removed when Philip J. Pierre became Prime Minister. The price per gallon is now $16.50, the highest in the OECS for the last 3 years.
Hard-hitting, punchy, straight to the point, like it is. Starting on Monday, September 23rd, 2024. And every Monday from 8 p.m. Join in our simulcast on Hot 7 TV, Cable 117, Plug and Play, Channel 7, and Kiss FM 105.5 and 105.9, where we discuss politics and current affairs, the issues that matter and concern you, with your host, Spider Montoot. See you every Monday from 8 p.m. when we tell it like it is.
So, Mr. Speaker, on page 659, Mr. Speaker, 659, St. Jude's Hospital Reconstruction Project is at $265 million. And in this year's estimates, $67 million. And of the $67 million, Mr. Speaker, $31 million is coming from bonds. We still don't know who the contractor is. We know that work is going on. The Prime Minister continuously tells us that work is going on. Who's the contractor? And where are the workers coming from, Mr. Speaker? Right? Where are the workers coming from, Mr. Speaker? Who has the contract? The $30 million they're going to pay out in bonds. To whom are they going to pay that money? Maybe it's the same person that is going to be renting them the building for CIP. I don't know. It might be. I'm very happy that they're going to be spending $2.5 million. So we wondered, Mr. Speaker, when they got the Saudi loan for $200 million, how much of that $200 million was going to go into the stadium? And here it says $2.5 million. Now I heard the Prime Minister say that that's for consultancy fees. And I would sit down and go, okay, so when Don Lockerbie, his company, because it's not Don Lockerbie, his company, a company that's done major work around the world in that area, got paid $2.5 million for his consultancy fees, that was the end of the world. And here it is now, we're going to, for one project, which is the stadium, you're going to pay a consultant now $2.5 million for that.
Did you know that the price of kerosene increased from $7 a gallon under the UWP to $11.69 per gallon under the SLP? A whopping $4.69 more per gallon.
Madam President, I think it's important to make the point that today we're borrowing $152 million. And year to date in this financial year, when we look at the various order papers that we have analyzed in the House, and my colleague did a very fantastic job in doing that. She did so for the calendar year. We see that year to date, it's over $400 million that this administration will have borrowed, coming here on separate occasions to borrow money.
Dear Prime Minister Pierre, did you know that over 240 St. Lucians have been murdered under your watch?
I'm not a policeman. My father was, not me.
Are you aware that the last 3 years have all seen record-breaking homicides?
I'm not a policeman. My father was, not me.
Murders have increased by 25% under your watch. What is your plan?
I'm not a policeman. My father was, not me.
Why are you not giving the DPP the resources he requires?
I'm not a policeman. My father was, not me.
Why are you allowing Ernest Ile and Richard Frederick to get away with all this corruption?
I'm not a policeman. My father was, not me.
Why do you keep rejecting advice on crime solutions from the UWP?
I'm not a policeman. My father was, not me.
Why have you abandoned the Border Control Initiative?
I'm not a policeman. My father was, not me.
Why did you initially abandon the K9 unit?
I repeat again, I'm not a policeman. My father was, not me.
Where was I when that happened? Complete fabrication, complete. Example, I was in court with Ernest Ile to pervert justice. Never happened. Never happened.
Flashback.
Prime Minister Philippe Pierre and Speaker of the House Claudius Francis were also present at the court hearing in a show of support.
Never happened. Never happened.
Let's take one thing, the 2.5% tax. Prime Minister came and passed 2.5%
health and levy
and security levy. Okay, he said it was specifically designed for monies to go and strengthen healthcare and security. Correct? And that he said that he's asking the people of this country to make a sacrifice. That he knows it's going to be hard. He knows these are difficult times, but he wants people to make that sacrifice for this. To now find out it never had anything to do with health and security. Now, most people would have known that. We pointed out at the time that there was no increase in health and security in any one of those ministries. But today, or on Tuesday, we found out for the first time, through the Prime Minister's own words, that the introduction of the tax was a condition to the loan to recover revenue.
So mouth open and story jump out.
Correct. And we should all be extremely upset because, again, what is this? This is a breach of the trust. This is a betrayal. Right? This is a fabrication of what the truth was. Mm-hmm. The people of St. Lucia have been deceived. As we say, we've been sold a 6 for a 9. Right?
Hard-hitting, punchy, straight to the point, like it is. Starting on Monday, September 23rd, 2024. And every Monday from 8 p.m. Join in our simulcast on Hot 7 TV, Cable 117, Plug and Play, Channel 7, and Kiss FM 105.5 and 105.9, where we discuss politics and current affairs, the issues that matter and concern you. With your host, Spider Montoot. See you every Monday from 8 p.m. when we tell it like it is. Hard-hitting, punchy, straight to the point, like it is. Starting on Monday, September 23rd, 2024. And every Monday from 8 p.m. Join in our simulcast on Hot 7 TV, Cable 117, Plug and Play, Channel 7, and Kiss FM 105.5 and 105.9, where we discuss politics and current affairs, the issues that matter and concern you. With your host, Spider Montoot. See you every Monday from 8 p.m. when we tell it like it is.
Hi, my name is Dominic Fede, representing the constituency of Ancillary Canneries, and really my candidacy for this election is about bringing out the best in the constituency. F-E-D-E-E, Fede is the man for we. F-E-D-E-E, Flavo is the right party. We've accomplished some 15 inner community roads together. When I look at the cemetery road and I think of women coming to a funeral in high heels and had to bring 2 pairs of shoes because of the mud. Those days are gone. We built the HRD center and we have had some 200 individuals who have been trained within the first few months of opening. We want to build more houses. We want to help more of you. We want to create more jobs. Some of the ideas that we have include a call center in the constituency where, when completed, would generate some 400 to 600 jobs. When I look at the ancillary waterfront project, the jetty is going to be extended. A mini hotel is already at the ground floor and being built. The square is being redone. There's a restaurant in the location of the old community center building. This is going to transform the ancillary waterfront. The drain around the field has been much talk, and it's been an eyesore, and it has been a source of much discomfort to the people of ancillary. But I am happy to tell you that after fighting hard for it together, we are now in a position where the drain is being built. I'm asking you to support us because I'm convinced that we have the superior vision for St. Lucia. So if you're from Canaries Ancillary, then you know you have to stay with Fede. Let's keep working.
I feel best stupid. Me don't know what he about. And as a Prime Minister, me lost.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
I feel best stupid. Me don't know what he about. And as a Prime Minister, me lost.
Madam President, I think that some people should be ashamed to look at the St. Lucian public in the eye. Because it's one of two things. It's either they all knew and they were all duped. And if they knew, Madam President, today is the day to make things right. We don't want to hear the usual, when you all was there, oh your government this, Alan Chastanet, Alan Chastanet, Alan Chastanet. If anybody here has any virtue, and you should all stand one by one and apologize to the public of St. Lucia. Tell them I'm sorry.
Did you know that the price of fuel was capped at $13.95 per gallon under the UWP? But that cap was removed when Philip J. Pierre became Prime Minister. The price per gallon is now $16.50, the highest in the OECS for the last 3 years.
If you're going to grow your country, you have to grow the capacity. You have to make sure they're healthy. You also have to make sure they're well educated. But that takes a plan. It takes a commitment. And it's not about just words. It has to be much more significant. And I have not heard anything here today, Mr. Speaker, that would give me any comfort, nor should it give any other St. Lucian comfort, that they're going to use this opportunity they found on their lap appropriately, and to make sure that the young people of this country and the workforce of this country are going to get jobs that they can make careers of, jobs they can raise their families on, jobs in which, yes, they can become international and raise their own standard of living. That should be the aspiration. I did not hear any of that today, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Did you know that homicides have increased by 25% since Philip J. Pierre became Prime Minister? Over 280 homicides have been recorded in the last 3 years.
So, Mr. Speaker, on page 659, Mr. Speaker, 659, St. Jude's Hospital Reconstruction Project is at $265 million. And in this year's estimates, $67 million. And of the $67 million, Mr. Speaker, $31 million is coming from bonds. We still don't know who the contractor is. We know that work is going on. The Prime Minister continuously tells us that work is going on. Who's the contractor? And where are the workers coming from, Mr. Speaker? Right? Where are the workers coming from, Mr. Speaker? Who has the contract? The $30 million they're going to pay out in bonds. To whom are they going to pay that money? Maybe it's the same person that is going to be renting them the building for CIP. I don't know. It might be. I'm very happy that they're going to be spending $2.5 million. So we wondered, Mr. Speaker, when they got the Saudi loan for $200 million, how much of that $200 million was going to go into the stadium? And here it says $2.5 million. Now I heard the Prime Minister say that that's for consultancy fees. And I would sit down and go, okay, so when Don Lockerbie, his company, because it's not Don Lockerbie, his company, a company that's done major work around the world in that area, got paid $2.5 million for his consultancy fees, that was the end of the world. And here it is now, we're going to, for one project, which is the stadium, you're going to pay a consultant now $2.5 million for that.
Perhaps the many times we came last year to bring in certain legislations, while we have the members opposite pontificating and beating their hands on their chest, telling the people how good they were at trying to, help them in terms of giving them waivers and tax breaks on interest and penalties. I'm sure you remember that, Madam President, how they were so happy and proud to say that they care about the businesses and the people, and they were giving them those tax breaks. We are finding out today that's not the case, Madam President. That's not the case. They were only doing that because they were forced by the Caribbean Development Bank as precondition for this loan that they had to borrow. So they went to Caribbean Development Bank, they had to borrow, and the bank said, but you must do this, you must do 1, 2, 3. I didn't say it, they did. Right. That the bank said to them, you must do those things, and so they came to Parliament and said, we're doing this and we're doing that, but all the time, it was never out of the goodness of their heart. Never out of the goodness of their heart. Never because they cared about the people.
What if you didn't need a lie detector? Eye contact is linked with truthfulness.
A drastic move by the National Housing Corporation has led to the termination of 2 lucrative contracts for the construction company Fresh Start.
The board took the decision that not only Shock, but both Shock and Talvin developments,
Eye contact,
which were
supposedly the subject matter of an 80-20 arrangement.
Eye contact is linked with truthfulness.
How much is it costing us for that termination?
Well, put it this way.
When people are lying, they're less likely to be specific. This is a massive red flag.
Both of the developments were started illegally. And once you start an illegal development, you do it at your own risk.
So how is it illegal?
Because there was no DC approval for either of them.
The 2 housing schemes under the UWP administration were developed with the aim of providing low-cost housing while tackling the issue of unplanned settlements.
Some liars are just really good at acting.
Okay, the member from Castries, he said it was only a madman who would believe that tourism would have recovered.
Mr. Speaker, I'm challenging you. Anything I say, he'll say, I'll do it. That's a challenge. Anything, Mr. Speaker, I'll say that the member from Microsoft says, I'll play a team. I challenge him. Anything he says, I say, play a team.
Flashback. The government is continuing as usual, as if nothing happened. The government of St. Lucia is the only government that believes that tourism will get back to how it was pre-COVID. I think it's the only government in the world that believes that. There's no other government, I think, who believes that except the government of St. Lucia. So what do? We continue with business as usual. We continue to build an airport based on the fact that our airport would get its income from arrivals. Are you serious? Do you really believe? I never knew. I never understood the impact of tourism in St. Lucia.
I am Harrow Stanislas, your United Workers' Party candidate for Soufrière Font Saint-Jacques. One of the main campaign promises which I made in 2016 was the Hummingbird Beach. So this project has significantly benefited the people of Soufrière as entrepreneurs and created many sustainable jobs. Another project which I'm very proud of is the Old Trafford complex. This again was another campaign promise to build a farmers market for the farmers of Soufrière Font Saint-Jacques and the vendors. And today we've been able to deliver a first-class farmers market combined with a bus terminal, the only one of its kind in St. Lucia, to the people of Soufrière Font Saint-Jacques. Another project which we promised the people of Soufrière Font Saint-Jacques that we were going to deliver to them was the Esperance Diamond Road. After 40 years, they are finally getting a new road connecting Font Saint-Jacques and Soufrière through Diamond. We have undertaken a comprehensive major rehabilitation of the Soufrière Mini Stadium to make it a world-class sporting facility. We have some very critical projects, critical interventions, which we would like to see take place in Soufrière in the next 5 years. So one priority project for us in the new term is going to be the construction of a Soufrière community, cultural and theatre arts center. We also want to focus on housing, and therefore we want to concentrate on opening up parts of the constituency where you could have housing development, housing schemes, where we can make lots available to the young people of Soufrière Font Saint-Jacques. vote for me as your candidate, your next parliamentary representative, and I can assure you that Soufrière is going to continue on the trajectory of progress, growth, development, empowerment, and opportunities for all. Performance matters. Let's keep working.
Harrow keep best lap. I know a lot of man, but Harrow is the best one. Mokoneta shine now. Harrow keep best lap.
Did you know that Prime Minister Philip J. Peck cancelled the National Health Insurance Program, which was started by the UWP, and would have given every St. Lucian $75,000 worth of healthcare coverage every year?
If we show emotion, we're called dramatic. When we made bold promises, they said we're nuts. And if we dreamt of moving the earth to please, they say we're delusional. When we stand for something, we're unhinged. When we're too good, there's something wrong with us. And if we get angry because of their lies, we're hysterical, irrational, or just being crazy. But engineering a world-class hospital in 4 years is crazy. Ensuring we transform the town was crazy. Setting up a sporting academy, crazy. Paving over 200 roads in 5 years, crazy. Creating 2,000 new jobs in the BPO sector alone, crazy. A woman empowering her people, crazy. $10 million to refurbish schools annually, crazy, crazy, crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do.
We always do. We are going to start with our national anthem, so I'd like to invite everyone to please stand at attention for the playing of the national anthem. Remain standing as I call on Mr. Vincent London to lead us in a word of prayer.
Thank you, Mr. Master of Ceremonies. I know one day we'll be proud again to hear our national anthem. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for all those who are in attendance. We thank you for all those who are on their way. We thank you for this presentation today, Almighty God, and that you'll give us guidance. Let your angels guard every corner of this place. We thank you and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Flambeau Live. And today's topic is our ongoing healthcare crisis. As someone quite wittingly said recently, we don't have healthcare in St. Lucia, we have health scare in St. Lucia. And we have a number of speakers who will address you on this pertinent topic. As you know, there are many crises in St. Lucia today. We have, of course, the crime. And when we talk about the crime, we generally focus on homicides, but there's rampant robberies and housebreaking taking place now in St. Lucia. You have people approaching people under false pretense some dress as police, some as pollsters and all of that, and they rob people. Let us not forget, when we talk about crime, that there is rampant white-collar crime taking place in St. Lucia today. And you know, the people accused most of this one is our very government. And we have a situation of high cost of living. That's another crisis we face here in St. Lucia. We have a situation of foreigners being given all that is good in St. Lucia, our lands, our ports, our passports, and so on. We have the situation like we're going to talk about today, that of healthcare. And it is a major crisis. We heard what the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association had to say on the subject. But before I go any further, I would like to call on a young lady who will, first of all, deliver some welcome remarks to you, and then she will speak a little on the subject that we are addressing today. So, ladies and gentlemen, could you please put your hands together and welcome Ms. Vilma James, who will be our first speaker at today's Flambeau Live.
Why is it that when critical decisions are to be made, the necessary drugs are unavailable and need to be sourced from a private sector, which is Tapio? Emergency rooms still have dozens of patients admitted but cannot be sent to rooms due to lack of beds. And from my personal experience, I have noticed firsthand that patients are being sent home immediately due to lack of beds, and there are patients being kept on chairs for days waiting for beds. Good evening, Flood-Beaubrun family. Welcome to Grocery. Today, as I stand here, I represent the countless young women across St. Lucia, those who dream of a better future, those who work tirelessly to achieve it, and those who unfortunately face a healthcare system that is failing us. Let me start by asking a question. What has the St. Lucia Labour Party done for us in terms of healthcare? In case you did not know, let me remind you. They stopped the commencement of the National Health Insurance Program. They falsely introduced a health and security tax to fund healthcare, yet the budget for healthcare was cut. Constant shortages of basic medication and healthcare facilities island-wide. Mass resignation of doctors and staff at the Owen King European Union Hospital. They abandoned the state-of-the-art St. Jude's Hospital, which was started by the UWP. SLP managed COVID for 1 year with over 400 deaths. And in case you forgot, the United Workers' Party managed COVID for 2 years with only 80 deaths. Healthcare should be a backbone for any striving nation. It is the foundation that allows us to live well. But in St. Lucia, that foundation has become weak, fragile, and unreliable. For too long, we have been forced to navigate a healthcare system that feels more like a game than a service. As a young woman, I have seen firsthand the consequences of a broken system. From my family members to my friends and even myself. Going to a health center or hospital is just not a routine part of life. It is a source of fear. Will there be a doctor available? Will there be enough medication? Will there be any equipment that works? These are the questions we should not have to ask in 2024. Yet, they remain a daily reality for many of us. Let us start with access. St. Lucia's healthcare is supposed to be for all of us. Yet, for many of us, it feels like a privilege rather than a right. I have seen people struggle to get basic medical care. And for some, the facilities are too far, the transportation costs too high, and even when they finally reach a hospital, there is often no guarantee that they'll receive the service that they need. Then there is the state of facilities themselves. I've walked into some of our clinics and our hospitals and felt like I was stepping back in the time of my grandparents. broken beds, outdated equipment, peeling out walls, long lines in the corridor, no medication, doctors outsourcing from patients themselves. Our healthcare professionals, many of whom are incredibly dedicated, are being asked to perform miracles within limited resources. And let me tell you, no one, no doctor, no nurse, no patient should be going through this. We the youth, and we are the future of this nation. Yet we need healthcare, and it is as if our futures are not considered a priority. Maternal health services, mental health care, preventative screenings, these are basic things that the young women like me should have access to without delay or anxiety. But in St. Lucia, it feels like we are asking for too much. 2 or 3 weeks ago, a friend of mine, a young woman who suffers with a condition that requires special care, visited the hospital. And you know what she received? A long wait. She spent the entire day in the hospital and left in the night with no clear path to treatment. In fact, given a known diagnosis, she was given a prescription to buy some pills and sent home. It was heart-wrenching to watch her battle, not just her illness, but also a system that was supposed to protect and care for her. And she is not alone. She is not the only one who may have this a very, and if not close story. These stories echoes in the lives of many people in St. Lucia. Now let's talk about mental health. I know how crucial it is for us to have access to mental health support, especially in a time when stress, anxiety, and depression are increasingly common in the youth. But in St. Lucia, mental health services are barely spoken of, let alone adequately funded. How many more of our young people must suffer in silence before we acknowledge that this is a crisis? Truth is, we deserve better. We deserve a healthcare system that works. We deserve doctors who are available, clinics which are equipped, and services that are reliable. We deserve mental health care that is accessible and affordable. We deserve a government that treats healthcare as a moral obligation. To those in power, I say this. The state of healthcare in St. Lucia is a direct reflection of your priorities. When our people suffer, when young women like myself are forced to question whether we'll get care if we need, this is a failure of your leadership. You've already destroyed our agricultural sector. Must we now watch you dismantle our healthcare system too? We are tired of waiting. We are tired of excuses. And we are tired of seeing our people, especially our young women, being left behind. It is time for action. It is time for accountability. Now, I know y'all are not familiar with the meaning of that word, so I looked it up for y'all. Accountability, a noun. The quality or state of being accountable, especially an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility for one's actions. It is time for you to truly care about the health of this nation. We, the young women of St. Lucia, are calling for change, and we will not stop until we see the change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vilma. And you heard it. You know, they say out of the mouths of babes, you know, the truth is what we're hearing today on this podium. I want to especially welcome those joining us on live stream, especially our regulars in the diaspora. We know you are always with us, and today will be no exception. You'll be enlightened, and you will hear the truth. We will shine the light on the truth, because on the other side, what you hear constantly is bluff and lies. The SLP, the party of secrets, lies, and propaganda. And as we talk about healthcare, I want to bring on another young individual, this time a male, who will speak on the subject as well. And of course, you have seen him on Flambeau Live before, and he's fast becoming a regular. I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Joshua Harrow, who is our next presenter, who will speak on our topic. Please welcome Joshua.
Each one of us must stand united and take a stand against the injustice that is happening. Because if we do not, we as a nation will fall. There is no unity amongst us anymore. We must stand united. We must light the torches. We must make the way. We are the truth. We are the light. We are St. Lucians. Mamai Flabo! Oh, it's hard. It's going to be hard to top Vilma's speech, boy. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to try. I want to pose a question before I speak. And this is for those in the diaspora. These are for anyone. If you see me in town, I hope you have the answers. And I want to ask this question. If St. Lucia were to crumble and we had to start all over again, what do you believe are the three most essential ministries? And this you will hear in my presentation. Some may say agriculture, health, national security, infrastructure. We have many sayings, but this question was posed to me by my mentor, the president of our youth arms, who posed this question to me in the last election, and it left me dumbfounded. It left me questioning, wow, what are the most essential ministries? So let me stand by this day. Today we are here to take a stand. Not just to criticize, but to demand answers. To demand what Vilma indicated, accountability for the failures of our healthcare system that left the youth and the people of St. Lucia at risk. The state of our nation's healthcare is an inconvenience and a crisis. And the current administration, the St. Lucia Labour Party, has failed to prioritize the health of our people, especially our youth. Now, I want to begin with mental health. A silent crisis that is affecting young people across this country. According to the World Health Organization, mental health is a critical issue, yet where is the support? The United Nations has stressed the importance of mental health services, but under this government, young people suffering from depression, anxiety, and trauma have been left to themselves. The United Workers' Party recognized this and started working towards improving mental health services, but the Labour Party has left the effort to die. And this affects me personally, because next month will make 10 years that I've actually lost my grandfather to suicide. And imagine in the moment where I found out that he committed suicide, when I went to school, there was no counseling effort, there was nothing. You know what I got told? That's life. Mind you, 2 weeks prior to that, I lost a student in my school and I attended their funeral. 2 weeks later, I lost my grandfather. I thought that was going to be it. One of my closest teachers, who when I came back to St. Lucia, molded me, gave me courage, even when I felt like I didn't belong. In that instant, in that January, she lost her life. And as the president and head prefect of this institution, I spent majority of my time counseling and dedicating my time and effort into helping my students. But the question is, who is there to counsel the counselor? Nobody. So now our young people are suffering from a mental health crisis, and we treat it as though you're young, you don't understand the world, you don't understand anything about the world. But the highest rate of suicide is our young men. The highest rate of homicides is our young men. It's the people who are going through the crisis and the bullying themselves are the ones inflicting the damage upon this world, and we sit there and act like it's not an issue. How are we putting people first when they're last on the agenda for development in St. Lucia? Now, another topic I want to tackle is proper education on sexual reproduction in our schools. It's like a topic that we do not address because we make our young people feel as though this is not something they should partake in, but these are things that they are aware. When you have young people becoming pregnant, when you have young people dropping out of school, when you have young people taking part in activities they should not be taking part in, they are at risk. They are the most at risk. Should they not be knowledgeable on the things that they are engaging in? Why do we treat it as though it's an issue? And then we suffer with young people with issues such as gonorrhea, HIV, and all of these other things. And we're wondering what's happening. Where's the comprehensive education on those matters? We dance around it like Labour dancing on the streets in their little march. but we don't tackle the issue head on. No accountability, no awareness. What about non-communicable diseases? St. Lucia has the highest rate of diabetes per capita. Are we providing sufficient insulin? Are we giving adequate storage to the insulin so that we can make sure that our people can survive? We have young people eating fatty foods in our schools and wondering why they're not learning in the classroom, filled with oily substance in their system. Under the United Workers' Party, Gary Rigobert ensured that there were no soft drinks in the schools anymore. And under this party, we would have ensured that each child gets a proper meal, a proper breakfast, so that they can educate themselves and understand the importance of a proper diet. Oh, under the United Workers' Party, oh, we would have done so much. You know what Labour did? They stopped the commencement of the national insurance. They lied about the health and security levy. As a nation, do you feel secured? There is no security. Look at what's happening to our young people. Look at what's happening to our nation. And we're supposed to feel safe? It's already a fearful factor just to go to the doctors. We're encouraging our young women to populate, but we don't have the necessary personnel in the hospitals to help them feel secure when they're giving birth. What are we doing? What are we doing? A bunch of jokers, SLP, Papi Show. Let me hear you say SLP. You understand? A bunch of jokers. Let me tell you what the United Workers' Party did. In 2016, we waived $12 million in hospital bills, to make sure that nobody had this weight on their shoulders feeling like they have to owe the hospital. Everyone got to be healthy and secured in their funds. We upgraded 17 health centers into smart health facilities. Recently, I just saw Musa in Mikud standing in front of the health center celebrating that he opened the health center. What health center? The one that was built under United Workers' Party? The only reason you benefiting it because we started it. You just there because it finished. Why are we celebrating people that haven't started anything? The cul-de-sac highway, health centers, Victoria Hospital, we started it. You just there because it ended and then you celebrate like you did something. What did you do? The only thing you cannot do is mind your business. Bunch of jokers. SLP. You understand? You see how many problems we have with OKEU? I find it ironic that when SLP gets their hands on things, it breaks because UWP built OKEU. We built this project. We knew the entire function of this hospital from every single nail that was screwed. We knew because we built this hospital and you are tearing it down. Doctors are resigning in mass droves and Philip said something. Philip said that it is normal for people to move on to greener pastures. It's normal for people to move on to greener pastures. That's true. It's called migration. It's a crisis when majority of your skilled workers are moving. That's not migration, my brother. You burn in the field. We cannot eat. There is no pasture. So then how are you saying we are just migrating? Everyone migrates, but not all your skilled workers migrating at the exact same time. I was in the hospital in 2022. My grandmother was diagnosed with cancer. And at that time, there was another individual there who had the same issue. And the doctor said to us, be positive. Make her feel loved. Make her feel welcome. Make her feel hopeful. Whenever the doctor went to see my grandmother, always was positive, always was loving. My grandmother lived 1 year longer than the person she was suffering with the same issue with, just because of that mentality that she had. The lady went and asked us, why did my grandmother get to live longer? Because she was surrounded by people and had doctors there who gave positivity and energy. How can we expect our people to survive when those same people who gave us reassurance are not there? The hospital is supposed to get you back to your home. You should never have to bring your home to the hospital. What are we saying? What are we saying? Our doctors were taken care of during COVID-19. They were housed. They had hotel rooms to stay at because of these long shifts that they had to deal with. The United Workers' Parties ensured that our medical staff were covered in every way possible. Now we have doctors leaving in mass droves. We have a failing healthcare system. And then we're saying, oh, they're just migrating. Papi show. You understand? Greener pastures. More like they're creating artificial grass. Right? This is what we're living in right now, people. And this is, you know what OKEU feels like to me when I understand it? Now OKEU feels like only killing everyone ultimately. Because when you go in, you're never sure if you're coming out. So I say this to the Labour Party. Get the act together. You are failing us young people. You are failing the nation and you are failing the rest of the world. Tourists should feel comfortable when they come to St. Lucia's medical system and feel like they haven't left the United States at all. So forth, I was watching a documentary and it says that the star, when you see the light of a star, is actually the past. And if you were to stand on that star and watch Earth, you'll see dinosaurs. Which makes a lot of sense why their symbol is a star, because they are a bunch of dinosaurs building their old ancient technologies, trying to convince us that they're doing something. Even if they do finish St. Jude, you know how many years it would take for St. Jude to be fully operational? You just want to say you finish it so that you have something for the elections. SLP. You understand? So I want us to understand this when we talk about healthcare, and especially when it comes to our young people. Why don't we have school nurses? If a child has an allergic reaction in our school and goes into anaphylactic shock, they only have about 2 minutes until they actually lose consciousness and they die. How long do you think it's going to take an ambulance to reach from wherever it is to the school to take care of the child with those poor road conditions? Because that guy said we're not eating roads. With these poor road conditions, the high level of traffic and the poor infrastructure, how long do you think it's going to take for them to get there? That child will lose their life more likely. Why not have school nurses to make sure that our children are safe, to make sure that the doctors are fully aware of what the child is allergic to and can give the proper medication to help deal with that until the ambulance arrives? Why not do that? Why not go on proper school feeding programs that get rid of all the fatty foods and fatty things to help our children educate themselves and be more aware? SLP, you continue to be that. A papi show. So as I conclude from what my mentor told me, if we had to look at those ministries, it would be health, to make sure that everyone is okay. It would be agriculture, to make sure that everyone is fed. And what do you think the last one is? Security, infrastructure, to make sure that we have the proper roads, proper facilities, and adequate resources to make sure that our nation thrives and succeeds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harrow. Always inspiring. You know, the Prime Minister said that doctors, nurses, and administrative staff leaving our healthcare institutions in mass numbers is normal. Okay? They're just moving to greener pastures, as Joshua told you. I mean, sometimes I wonder about, we're talking healthcare, I wonder about the mental health of our Prime Minister. I said very early in the day that the Prime Minister should be subjected to a mental health check, because I don't think this one is normal. I don't think this one is okay. Anyway, I think an easier and better solution is to ensure that the government migrate as well and move on to other pastures. Because the crises that they have created in this country today, when you look at the progress that we would have made had we continued with the United Workers' Party. I mean, Vilma mentioned some of them, Joshua mentioned some of them in terms of the insurance, where health insurance, where we would have had up to $75,000 worth of medical care. Today, you have to go to the hospital, I was told, with your own bed sheet. You have to go with your own pillowcase. You have to bring your own toilet paper, everything. And when the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association came out to highlight the crisis that we were facing. Instead of attending to the situation, they abused the president of the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association to the extent that today she is gone. If we don't take stock very soon, this St. Lucia Labour Party will get rid of everything good and everyone that is good in this country. But we will not allow that. We will take control of our country because they are ruining our country. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring someone who knows something about running a country, someone who has served in the healthcare system. Now, you know, I have to say something, and she might take it a little personal, but I will be personal. When a minister, in other words, if you are responsible for a kitchen and you don't eat at that kitchen, don't ask me to eat there. I remember when this lady was the Minister of Health, she went to our hospital to deliver her baby. How many of the current ministers of government in cabinet today, if they stump their toe and break their toenail, will go to any of our health institutions? You see? They pick up and go to Martinique, Joachim, Virginia, all of them. As soon as anything is wrong with them, they pick up and they go. Put the healthcare system in place. Make it good enough that you can trust it and you can go there for care. It's not good for you, but it's good for us. Make it good for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring on to the podium right now someone who knows and understands. I'm mixing that order? Okay. Would you like to? Yeah, I don't think it matters very much. I'm introducing someone who knows and understands health because she has served in the portfolio. And she is a part of the United Workers' Party team, and she will be there, she has been there and will be there to assist us in setting up one of the best healthcare systems, like our political leader always say to you, a world-class health system for the people of St. Lucia. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mrs. Sarah Flood-Beaubrun to the podium.
Okay. When there is no electricity and everything in your fridge is spoiling and you have to cook it so you can save it, who feels it most? When you can't buy medication for your child and you have one child sick in the house because you cannot get medication for the cold, all the children falling sick. Who feels it most?
Brothers and sisters, Mamai Flambeau. To my brothers and sisters everywhere. There are St. Lucians everywhere in the world. And St. Lucians everywhere in the world are in the house tonight. So I say a very pleasant good evening to all St. Lucians. And I'm speaking not just to the United Workers' Party family. I'm speaking to the SLPs as well, to the undecideds. All true St. Lucian patriots who have their country's best interests at heart. Brothers and sisters, the young people have so adequately outlined all of the issues facing our health sector. So in terms of the facts being presented to us, we have all of the facts regarding the dire health situation facing our country. It is a fact that our health system has never been in such crisis before. A fact. Always, when VH was in a mess, we had St. Jude. When St. Jude was struggling, we thought we had OKEU, but now, yo platate. Flat down. As somebody said, you cannot afford to be sick now in this country. But so our young people have outlined so well, and they will continue to do that. But you know, tonight, you know what I want to say tonight? Philip J. Pierre, the Minister of Finance, he owes every single St. Lucian money. He owes every single St. Lucian a check or cash in their bank account. Because guess what? They've imposed a levy on us through deceit. They've imposed, by his own admission, they imposed the health and security levy on us through deception. It was never for health and security. Now, we are approaching Journée Creole. Ekwe Chan say Mopo Ikaye, one of the places, but I'll be heading to Mopo for Journée Creole. Think about this. I don't know if there's anybody from Mopo in the house, but I'm sure there are people from Mopo listening tonight. So, let us suppose the sports club in Monrepo decides to raffle a cow for Journée Creole. They say they're going to raise the money and they will give the proceeds of the raffle to the Marion home. Okay? They come to you, you donate a cow or you buy a raffle ticket. Then they decide they will take that money, they will not give it to the Marion home, but they will give it to St. Lucy's home. Is this ethical? Isn't this dishonest? Obtaining money and property by deception. That's wrong. When they collect that money, if they decide they want to use it for something else, they either have to come back to ask you permission or they have to give you back your money. That is why I say tonight, the Minister of Finance owes every single St. Lucian money, hard cash. Because you impose a health and security levy on us by deception. Listen to what the Prime Minister himself said when he was presenting the health and security bill in the House of Parliament. You know what he said? When he was presenting that bill, he never spoke about the purposes of the bill, you know. He never said what it was for. Listen to what he said. The Prime Minister said that this was the health and security levy bill was imposed in order for St. Lucia to qualify for a policy-based loan of $42.7 million, and that policy-based loan was for the purposes of modernizing tax administration and land administration. So to break it down simply, in order to qualify for the CDB loan, the government of St. Lucia had to show the CDB that they could raise revenue. So he thought the easiest way to raise the revenue for the $42 million US loan that was for land administration and for tax modernization was to tell the people of St. Lucia it's for health and security. So he told us it was for health and security because that was convenient, because he thought we would accept it, but it was never for health and security. That's the point. That is the point. And you know something? When you use our suffering, abuse our suffering, the innocent blood on the streets of this country, the deaths in the hospital that should never have happened, he used that because it was convenient for him and pretended that he was taxing us to address these issues when he never intended to use the money for that. So he owes us that money. And I would like an accountant and the people in St. Lucia who are able to do it to quantify it, to see how much on average every St. Lucian has spent on the health and security level, and we need to be credited that money back into our accounts. Those of us who do not have a bank account, write us a check. Exactly maljuno kaivweomon asheibayu. We have to demand this. And this is this government's modus operandi. From times I should know because I was there with them. It has been their modus operandi, and they're getting bolder and bolder and bolder and bolder. They have breached our trust. The only reason why a government can impose a tax is because we have given them authority to govern us. And the extent of the authority we've given you is the measure of the trust we place in you. So when we give you 15.2, you have to hold and guard that trust with everything you have. And now you've broken it. And it's no surprise. It's no surprise that health has gotten worse and there's more blood on our streets. Because on deception, they have based all of what they intend to do on a big lie, on deception. That money is tainted. It belongs to us and it should be in our pocket. But I said it's their modus operandi. I remember way back, if you look back in the records, I was able to find it. I remember way back in 2003, I recalled, you will remember, Valinda Joseph was murdered in 2002. And you might say I'm going way back. Well, in those days, when there were crimes like that, we couldn't sleep. We felt so bad. We felt so bad and we felt so shaken. You know, a 14-year-old girl of 15 was gunned down 2 days ago. And we all went to bed and slept. It was not a big deal. That's just commonplace nowadays. But I recall, it was in December 2002, if I remember, Joseph's murder, December 2nd, 2002. I'm just showing you the modus operandi of this SLP government. When they realized that it was going to be 1 year of her murder and nothing had been done, they quickly announced the year of the child in November 2003, 1 month before the anniversary. What? To give the impression that they cared. On somebody's death, they're doing that. Remember, Section 166 of the Criminal Code, when they brought it in, was never about women. It was never about women. It was about the money they had promised them. It was the money they had promised them. And so they were prepared to let children die because of money. Now they're asking us to make children. You hear me? It was all about the money. Where is the shelter for battered women? It's closed under them. They don't care about women. They never cared. L'argent. They want to make big money. They don't care how they make it. They want to make big money by any means necessary. And they will lie to you for the purposes that they are making it. And the sad thing is, it's always around death and loss of life that they are lying. They're making money on blood. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And that is why our country is in the state that it is. That is why they will never, they are unable to get us out of the situation. We will only sink deeper and deeper and deeper. And you don't need me to tell you that. The statistics are telling it to you. The young people just told it to you. So in my view, the decision in this election is very straightforward. Very straightforward. We cannot continue the way we are. None of us here knows if we're getting home tonight. None of us. See the way things are in this country? With the carnage on the roads, with the crime, not one of us knows. And I'm just going to ask, how many of us have enough money in our pocket? If we can't get home tonight, take us to a hospital and we can pay the hospital bill. But you know, it's even worse. Even if we can pay the bill, we can't get good health care. So we're just there waiting for what? Only one thing we can be waiting for, but to put this government out of office. There's nothing else to do. Nothing else to do. St. Jude, the government got a loan from the Saudis of $75 million to fix St. Jude. I don't know, have they given us the latest update on St. Jude? It's all about going after big money. That's all it's about. You cannot tell me you borrowing on the backs of St. Lucians $75 million to go and fix an old cage. I'm sorry for putting it that way. Because when you look at the state of the art we were building right next to that facility, it's a cage it is. That is what it is. And they're taking our money to do that. And when we went down there, so our people could see for themselves and compare the two hospitals, they stopped us from going to see. Because they felt if we didn't see, we would remain blind and dumb. But not so. The youth have opened our eyes tonight. We can't say we didn't know. We cannot say we didn't know. So listen to that. After they put the health and security levy on us, by deception, never should have been, and we should be demanding our money back. Philip J. Pierre, in his presentation, says the health and security levy should not increase the price of food. Should not, when he knows full well that it will increase. That's why he told you it should not. He didn't say it will not. He told you it should not, knowing full well he created the conditions for it to increase, and it would be a natural result of his actions that it would increase. When you tell me for a business place, your rent suddenly has a 2.5 levy on it, your telephone bill suddenly has a 2.5 levy on it, the goods you buy suddenly have a 2.5 levy on it, you'll absorb that cost, it'll put you out of business, you will pass it on to the consumer. Is he an accountant? He's taking us for fools because it's natural logic. Brothers and sisters, the plate of food you eat has a 2.5 levy on it. The 2.5 levy is heaped on your plate of food. That's what it is. A levy that was imposed on us by deception. How can we trust a prime minister like that? You're incompetent. You're divisive. You're disingenuous. You are a downright embarrassment to this country. Downright embarrassment. Now, don't get me wrong. As he's always very fond of saying, he was elected. Of course. We all value the democratic process. We all respect the democratic process, which is why, through that same process, we're putting him out. I throw my water down. Which is why I'm appealing to us, through that same process that we respect and value, we use that same process to throw him out of office, because he has abused it. I am getting vexed pis nou si pose leve vache. Now, I understand, and before I end, you know what they do? All of that money, yo aime go l'argent. Yo aime go l'argent. And what they do with that money is just throw it at things. Just take that money, big money, and just throw it at things. Right? Big money for big projects that make no sense and just throw it at things. Our money. So that's why when you ask, well, what are you doing about crime? It tells you how much they're spending. He went and found 15 million, but by the way, that was not even from the health and security levy, you know. That came from CIP reserves, as he said. So if you're collecting all this money from us and we're squeezing so much because we're paying a health and security levy, you couldn't have that money there to sort out the problems of the OKU. He went and took the CIP reserve money, as he said. They have not even reported to us on this yet. We don't even know how many passports are sold, how much money we have out there. But he go and find money out there. And you know what he said to the people? He is not a doctor. Look the money, go and do what you all have to do. So we don't have a Minister of Health. Where is the Minister of Health? Who's supposed to be setting policy? Where is the Minister of Health, who is the person who appoints the board of the OKU, and the board is accountable to him? Hasn't he asked any questions? Hasn't he demanded any reports? Hasn't he walked the hospitals to see what is going on? Has he gone and spoken to patients? Hasn't he given some ultimatums to get things sorted out? Hasn't he done that? And not a word. All they care about is protecting the victory. Now, I have no problem with Ralph Gonsalves. I mean, Ralph has been a friend of the Labour Party from times. I understand Ralph is down there. Ralph is not here because he's part of Prime Minister Pierre's leadership, I can tell you. As a matter of fact, if Ralph told Pierre what he felt about him and how he handled the CIP, he would not even invite Ralph here to speak. So it's all hypocrisy. And people protecting a government because it benefits them personally. And the sad thing is, the rank and file of Labour are not benefiting. Because they can't afford to take an ambulance to go to Martinique. They can't afford to buy expensive medication and do the MRIs. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat. Let's not fool ourselves. Money is important, but it does not buy health. I'm speaking on a personal note now. You can have all the money you have. Before you go on an air ambulance, you have to be stabilized here in the country. They cannot put you on an air ambulance unless you're fit to travel. And if you do not have a good emergency system here, you cannot leave here even if the ambulance is waiting for you on the airport. So we better know that in this election, brothers and sisters, above everything else, above all the disrespect, above all the incompetence and ineptitude that this government displays, above all that, even if we just have to think of our survival, thinking of whether or not we're going to live to see tomorrow, or whether the little children we have growing up, whether when they go to a health facility for a routine matter, whether they will come out alive. Just on all of these things alone, we have to do the right thing. The youth are telling us, the youth are articulating it for us. We need to put our boots on. We need to get registered. We need to know where we're going to vote because they will try all kinds of things. We can have all the right messages. We can do everything right on election day. Because unless it's won, unless every vote is counted, there's no winner. So I want to thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining us. We are heating things up. There's so much to talk about. We have to keep focused. If you cannot trust a government, if you cannot trust your leader with your money, that person is in no position to lead you. And we know we have a leader who's been tried and tested. We can believe what he says. We can see his competence. He has represented us and can represent us anywhere at all in the world. He has respect for St. Lucians, and he is competent. He can do the work. So I want to thank you, brothers and sisters, as we start our week. Let us remember to keep focused. Regardless of what they tell us, we know if this government can be so deceptive, we cannot listen to anything they say. Let's keep focused, and let's make sure in the next election we return the United Workers' Party to office. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Sarah. And you heard it for yourself. But before I go on, let me just say that those of you who attend Flambeau Live regularly, you'll realize there's one person missing here tonight. And that is Mrs. Edna Hill. We call her Edna Rings. She's always at the Flambeau Live. But tonight she's at the OKEU. Or is it the not OK EU? Because she has to undergo surgery tomorrow. So she is watching us live right now. So Edna Rings, we have you in our prayers. We wish you the very best, and we pray for God's blessing for a safe surgery, and we wish you a speedy recovery. So now, I heard Sister Sarah talk about Ralph Gonsalves, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, is in Beaufort North tonight. He is at an SLP function. They have a big function there tonight. There's Ralph Gonsalves speaking there. There are Calypsonians, all kind of entertainers and artists. They were on the blocks in the various constituencies, giving people 1,500 to attend, and so on. I must say, they spare no effort in trying to bring out the crowd. I don't know what it is like over there, but I can tell you, I just looked at our live. While Sister Sarah was speaking, we had about 550 live, and I thank you, those of you who continue to view us on live stream, and those of you who are regulars in the diaspora, following the message of the United Workers' Party, we thank you. But by the way, you all want to know how many people they have. They have Ralph Gonsalves, entertainers, and they have 350. Now, if that is not a message to them, I don't know what will be. Because despite their best effort and all the money that they're spending, St. Lucians are no longer interested in the St. Lucia Labour Party and their leadership. And that is a clear indication of where this country is headed. And this country is headed back onto a path of development and progress with the United Workers' Party under the leadership of Alan Michael Chastanet. Now, before I call the next speaker, I think I'm on a talk show. Before I call the next speaker, I want to say this. Sister Sarah just reminded me that they take my money under false pretense. They told me I have to pay a 2.5 compounded tax, by the way. Okay, sometimes I end up paying how many 2.5s on one product? So they have taken my 2.5 and they told me it was for healthcare and security. Okay, two of the worst areas in this country. We have people dying every day in St. Lucia. We have, 67 homicides? I lose count already. Okay, about 67 St. Lucians have died. They just found someone in the constituency of Gros Lane, Piat in Grand Riviere, the remains of someone with spent bullet shells beside the person. Okay, that's another person that they're not going to count that person. They said it is a suspicious death. There was this person in Vieux-Fort North who was injured in an altercation and died a couple of weeks later. That person is not on the list. So when I say 67, we know we are 70 going. All right? So we are well on course for another record this year. But you know, in all of the lies, you know, we know that SLP is secret lies and propaganda. But we know in all of the lies, they make some admissions. I want to say to you, when Philip Pierre did not want to admit to you that he was going to impose a 2.5%, and by the way, let me remind you, when UWP was there, they took out 2.5. SLP put 2.5 on you. But he did not want to admit to you the reason why he was imposing that 2.5%, and Sister Sarah told you it was because they wanted to secure a loan from the CDB. Okay? He figured, boy, what can I tell those people that will justify that imposition? He said, you know what? If I tell them security and health, they'll buy that because security and health can't be worse. And you know what? We accepted it because we figured there needed to be something done about security and healthcare in St. Lucia. But what did you get? What did you get? A letter coming from the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association saying to you that while they're collecting your 2.5%, healthcare is the worst that it has ever been in the history of this country. And all our doctors, nurses, and administrators at our health institutions are living in droves. When it comes to healthcare, your security, so that's healthcare. When it comes to your security, they are taking your 2.5% and they're telling you it's for security. Yet still, you have a record number of murders taking place in this country. And today, if somebody comes to you and tells you, I'm a police officer, you have to be careful because they come disguised as police officers, they come disguised as pollsters, they come disguised as government workers to rob you, and they also hijack people's cars, they snatch people's jewelry, all kinds of criminal activities. And to compound it, there's always a compounding when it comes to the SLP, you know, a compounded tax. To compound it, you have your government involved in all kinds of corruption and illegal activity. But we will talk about that. We will talk about our most notorious corrupt minister who says he has a report to deliver on Tuesday. We will talk about that. Ladies and gentlemen, talking about gangsters, talking about criminals, talking about white-collar crime, we need to start cleaning up our country constituency by constituency. And I'm afraid that the worst is the city. We're going to start with the city. We once had decent representation, people worthy of the title of honorable, representing the city of Castries. Today, we have a dishonorable gentleman. And the very people who brought him into their cabinet told us that he is involved in money laundering, he is involved in murder, he is involved in drug trafficking, okay? And we know he is a gangster of sorts by himself. This is a man who goes on a talk show on a weekly basis to intimidate St. Lucians, to call people's names, okay? And, well, can I help you? Well, we're going to help him out of office very soon from now. We're going to help him out of office very soon from now. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to bring back dignity and honor to the position of parliamentary representative for Castries. And this time we're going to do so with a young man, a decent young man, who will give the people proper representation, who will serve the people, not intimidate and abuse the people. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome that young man, who will get rid of Richard Frederick. Rosh Clarke, the next parliamentary representative for Castries Central.
And this is a reality for many communities. No security, no safety in the heart of the city. Y'all didn't hear me. I need to say this again. No security, no safety in the heart of the city. Mamai Flabo. Mamai Flabo. My fellow St. Lucians, we would be discussing a lot today. We have been discussing a lot today. And we will continue to be discussing a lot. We are in trying times, serious trying times. Tonight I stand before you deeply concerned because the healthcare system is crumbling. And the lives of the people are at risk. From what I've been told, it's not getting better. From what we have been seeing, the cracks in the system right now are widening. Tell me, when the basic needs of the people of this country are not met, what are they supposed to do? What do we expect them to do? I speak to you from my personal experience. I was kept in the corridors of the OKEU hospital for 3 days. 3 days. And the only thing that was told to me, that they cannot get an available room. Imagine we have a hospital right now that cannot provide you with a bed. What kind of signs does that show for our health system? Gone are the days when a government can tell us that everything is all right. Gone are the days when a government showed concerns for the conditions of our hospital. Gone are the days when a government could care for our mental status, our mental issues, and the circumstances that we face on a day-to-day basis. Look at this most recent incident. We had a mother that gave birth to a child who had excessive swelling and fluid in his brain. She was told that the newborn would have been experiencing seizures and heart complications. She decided desperately that St. Lucia can no longer be an option for her. She considered our hospitals and said that the doctors and the equipments that are available here are not sufficient enough to save her son's life. So she went to St. Vincent, and apparently their healthcare system, along with the World Pediatric Project, managed to save her son's life. Think about that for a second. A neighboring island can do so much, and we can do so little for our own. Without CIP money. And I need to say it again. A neighboring island can do so much, and we can do so little for our own. Apparently, their prime minister understands the importance of healthcare. So maybe, since he's down Viewfort right now, he can speak some words of wisdom to our leaders and let him know as to what he should be focusing on. But as I say our leader, I really want to know, because it's easy enough for him to consider that he's not a doctor. There's nothing he can do about it. I don't expect much from our leader when these are the responses that we get when we bring issues of concern. Where is the Minister of Health when our children and our families are left to endure the backlash of this poor health system? It is time for us to face the truth. The Labour Party doesn't care about us. While they can afford to go overseas and attend to their medical treatments, we are left to squander and focus on what matters to us here. We are left with no other alternatives other than what we have available in this country. Not all of us can afford the luxury, and they know it, but yet still they don't care. Your family. Once again, we have a mother from Lapworth Dennery who had a 6-year-old that was shot, and right now is seeking $14,500 for her treatment. This is a tragedy that should not have happened in the first place. So I'm calling on everyone who can help, please help. But I want us to keep in mind that that should not be the norm. That should not be the norm. At this stage, when someone is finding themselves in dire need, our only means is a GoFundMe program seeking sponsorships to ensure that the people of this country can get the proper aid that they need. Let us not forget, let us truly not forget that the St. Lucia Labour Party stopped the National Health Insurance Plan that was there to benefit every St. Lucian. They've said it here already. Designed to ensure that we'd have had $75,000 toward medical expenses. Think about that for a second. Imagine not having to worry about the medical bills that we are already dealing with when we ensure that we have the stress of illness and the stress of injuries facing on a daily basis. If we had this insurance plan, there would be no begging for the proper health care for our families. Healthcare remains as a right and not a privilege for those who can afford it. I need to say this again. Healthcare is a right and should not be a privilege for only those who can afford it. But instead, this same government took it away from us. They robbed us of the peace of mind on health coverage. Instead, this government gave us a 2.5% levy towards health and security and robbing us again. But ask ourselves, what are we seeing from that money? Our health and safety, our health and security is at the worst it has ever been. Where are the hours that we spend in front of a doctor's office hoping that we can seek the medical assistance? Where are the health centers that are closed due to the fact that they do not have the right supplies or enough resources to keep them open? Let us not overlook the Castries Health Center. And right under the noses of the 5 senior ministers. Yes, you heard me right. The Castries Health Center. And these same 5 senior ministers seem to not care about its closing. This health center was not just a building. It was a lifeline for the children who attended schools and now have to travel further to obtain medical attention. It was a lifeline for the businesses who suffered because of their employees now finding themselves in a situation where they no longer can obtain a quick clinic. This was a lifeline for the residents who lived in these surrounding areas. The gunshot victims, the victims that were stabbed. This was a lifeline for them. In circumstances where a health center is needed, every second counts. People are suffering because this government ignored the basic principle of decentralizing healthcare. When the doors closed and it slammed on all of us, it slammed on our basic healthcare that we so desperately need. I have said it before, and I will say it again, that those who don't seem to care are always those that are not affected. Those that do not find themselves working hard, come rain, come shine, day in, day out, every day to make ends meet, to overcome this labor pain government. We are the ones that have to face it. We are the ones that are being victimized and disrespected by the lack of representation that these representatives play a blind eye to. Political leaders hold a position where they no longer care about anybody but themselves. But I want to say this to my political leader, that when we are back in power, I would be saying this in advance. I will ensure that we put the pressure to ensure that our people in Castries Central get the right health facility that they need. We want a healthcare service that is affordable, a service that is accessible, one that doesn't find ourselves in a crowded hospital with no beds, with little medicines, and broken machines that we face on a daily basis. Let's take a moment to acknowledge our doctors and nurses, because they are the real heroes that work tirelessly under the terrible conditions that they have right now. They show up every day despite the lack of resources, despite the challenges, and still give their all. And we know right now that some of them are on their last leg. Some of them, left, right, and center, have already left. They've resigned. I still want to show them my gratitude. We all want to show them our gratitude. But Alan Chastanet, myself, and the United Workers' Party, we don't believe that saying thank you is enough. We owe them better working conditions. We owe them the fight that is required for them to supply us with the proper working conditions that they need. We need to ensure that we give them the resources so they can work in these conditions regardless. They deserve better. We deserve a healthcare system that treats us with dignity, respect, and care. Together, the United Workers' Party will fight for this system and work for all St. Lucians, not only the privileged few. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosh. And you would think with CIP money, with my 2.5% they tax me, that at least they would have done something to alleviate the conditions at our hospitals. I mean, if they don't even show the doctors respect, let alone. Because don't forget when the president sent a letter indicating how bad things were. And you hear people call the talk shows and say it every day. It's not like it's a concocted story. The response of a government minister in the presence of the prime minister was that he's an old Zelev UWP. The disrespect, you know. And the prime minister sat there, said nothing. When questioned about it, pretended he did not hear what was said, you know. That's the kind of the leaders we have in this country today that we need to get rid of. You know, as Josh was speaking, my mind flashed back to that Sunday live that we had in Viewfort. And I remembered Herod Stanislaus, who is from the South, making a comment and saying that the government needs to pay attention to the fact that the standby generator is faulty because it does not kick in automatically when the electricity goes off at St. Jude's. And that is very critical, that is very crucial. Your light goes off at home, I mean, you take half an hour to look for a candle, a torchlight, whatever, no big deal. But in a hospital, there are people connected to gadgets and equipment, and it is important that those things remain functional for those people to remain alive. We're talking about life. And when Herod said that there was only one individual who knew how to manually start up that generator, and there was an incident where it took them hours to find that gentleman, the last time they had an outage. You know, I thought that was very critical. And you would have thought that alarm that he sounded would have gotten the attention of our government. Well, guess what? It is my understanding, I was told that a police officer from the south was at St. Jude's Hospital and he died because there was a loss of power from the mains and it took them too much time to get the generator kick-started to continue to provide him with the treatment, and so he died. That is the kind of callous government that you have in place who does not care about the life of our people. They do not care about the life of our people. And so when you think about it, during COVID, they had demonstrations, protests, and all, violating the regulations that were supposed to protect St. Lucians. As soon as they won, their members, according to them, their zelevs, who violated those laws, were exonerated. Okay? They expunged their record. After we controlled the lives, the loss of lives, and the livelihood of St. Lucians, we kept the numbers while New York and all those advanced cities were going through a major crisis with loss of life. We kept the numbers to about 80 St. Lucians. That was remarkable when you looked at what was happening around the world. That was remarkable. Upon assumption of office, the non-caring government of the St. Lucia Labour Party, led by Philip J. Pierre, saw over 400 St. Lucians lose their lives just so. Over 400 St. Lucians in quick succession, in a short space of time, lost their lives just so. And then, that very year, you had a record-setting 75 homicides. They didn't give a damn. The next year, you had 70-something. Last year, you had 75 again. This year, I know we have passed 70, but let's go according to official figures. They say it is 67. Well on course to break another record again this year. And you tell me they care about you? That government that we have, they care about us? At the end of the day, when you do not lose your life through homicides, through violent killings, through murder in this country, they ensure that if you fall sick, you lose your life because there's no healthcare system to take care of you and to ensure that you could get a simple cut and you can end up bleeding to death in this country because of the poor healthcare system. You would Rush tell you he spent 3 days in the alleyway of a hospital because there are no beds. And today, in addition to no beds, no medication, no bed sheets, there's no doctor, no nurse, no administrator. And that is a government that we can keep. People, let me tell you all something. It has gotten to the point where it is about our survival. We have to take a stand, and we have to do something about it. You know? Now, I'm going to bring on the next speaker, because that's my job to introduce the next speaker. But before I introduce the next speaker, again, I go back to Vieux-Fort, the life that we had in Vieux-Fort, referred to the Prime Minister as being foolish and retarded. I was on a talk show last week, and the anchor, who was Andre Paul, asked me the question, did I hear the statement? I said, yes. What do I think about the statement? I said, normally, I don't call people retarded. I don't call people foolish. And people who are challenged, I don't call them names, period. But I have no problems with Guy calling Philippe retarded, because he is. And the reason why I explained to Andre Paul, I said, Andre, you are supposed to be a normal person. And if you're going to sit there and disrespect me in the way that the Prime Minister disrespects us in St. Lucia, with all those lies and foolish statements that he's making, I would call you more than retarded. Okay? And no, well, we're not accusing anybody of anything. But that is the position. But I want to say to Guy, you do owe an apology. If there is anybody who's retarded, you have to apologize to those people, because Philip Pierre is worse than retarded. I would like to call my next speaker right now. And that is the man himself, the right guy. The guy you owe. Anybody who's foolish or retarded, you owe them an apology. You insulted them by saying that Philip Pierre is one, because he's worse than them. I want to call on Guy, and I repeated it deliberately. I want to call on Guy, who is the right guy, Now, I have my farm in his constituency, and I know the regrets that I'm hearing on a daily basis. So, let me change the introduction. I am going to call the returning parliamentary representative for Castries Southeast.
This country. Mamai Flabo. Good night to everyone. Those of you who are in the audience and those of you following us on social media, and my people from Castries Southeast, from Bele, and other parts of the constituency, I welcome you. Tonight, I'm going to take a different tone and approach to my presentation. I note the words of the Master of Ceremonies, Mr. Montut. I'm not usually in the business of calling people names. And if the Prime Minister feels offended by what I said, Mr. Prime Minister, I didn't speak on my behalf. So I can always apologize to you. But fix healthcare in this country. Fix the crime situation in this country. Because when we speak here, I hear the people all the time. I was just conveying a message to you, Mr. Prime Minister, from the majority of St. Lucians that I speak to who think that you are slow. So if slow is better for you, then you need to put some speed in what you do. This SLP government has created so many disasters in this country that it is difficult to keep focus on any one subject area. You know, usually, governments would fail in an area or two. Maybe areas of focus, whether it be Flabo or labor, we are human beings and we would have shortcomings. But we've never had a situation in this country by any other leader prior to Philip J. Pierre that have created so many crises in 3 years in a country. As bad as Kenny Anthony was as a leader, Kenny Anthony did not create so many crises in 3 years. And I can outline them for you. I know you know, but here are a few. A cost of living crisis in this country. And you know what is a crisis? A crisis is when something is not natural. It is unprecedented. It is not normal. The cost of living in St. Lucia today is not normal. And note, I'm pronouncing my words carefully. Not normal, like some people say. It is not normal for the cost of living to be so high. And then the Prime Minister tells us it is imported inflation. You know how you reduce imported inflation? It's a very simple formula. And I think I saw a broker inside here earlier. You just reduce the government taxes and you reduce the imported inflation that you talk about. A simple mathematical formula. By just going to Parliament and enacting a simple piece of legislation like removing the 2.5% levy that you put on the backs of St. Lucians can reduce the inflation you say that is imported. Now, that inflation is not all imported. It is homegrown and it is made in St. Lucia by the Philip J. Pierre administration. So we have a cost of living crisis. And I meet mothers. I meet single mothers. I meet parents. You know, they give the students computers or Chromebooks at the schools. And some of the subjects they do at school, the computer they give them or the Chromebook cannot be used for the subjects that the children do at school. For example, those who do technical drawing and other things of that nature. So, you have the cost of living crisis. And I'm not advocating that what happened in Martinique should happen here. But I understand why the French people took the hardline position that they have taken, because they feel neglected by France while the people in Martinique are suffering. The level of suffering in France is different. And so they've taken the hard line. And even when they try to negotiate with them and they say we are going to... How could the government of France all of a sudden say we're going to reduce the cost of things by 20%? And they say no, we don't want 20%. We want 40% reduction in the price of items. And we don't want 6,000, we want 54,000. These are people who are serious about their livelihoods. These are people who understand why eating a balanced diet is important. We are talking about a health crisis in St. Lucia. Most of our diseases are non-communicable diseases. They are lifestyle diseases. But when you cannot afford to buy the basic healthy things to eat, what do you expect people to do? Starve? And when they buy what they can afford and they get sick, there's no treatment for them at the healthcare facility. So you see the correlation between the cost of living and healthcare. So we have the cost of living crisis. We have a food shortage crisis. Se jou sa ou pa jwen nan yen, pa konte ko jounen kweol ka fin la. You know how much for a dashing? You know, back in the day when people went to their garden in the countryside, they didn't sell dashing. When they were passing, they just dropped 2 dashing from the man by your home for you. And that could feed you for almost a week. Oh, they are dashing $20. What happened to agriculture under this Labour Party government? So apart from the cost of living crisis, you have a food shortage crisis. My wife went to the supermarket and she bought 100 bananas, and when they weighed it, it came to $8 and something cents. Your pat fig, $8 ekalamondi, kuye $9. Can you imagine that something like bananas that you could see in every corner in this country, in 3 years, Labour Party was able to eradicate bananas from St. Lucia? Cette lisi pan figa ko an baleba. What can Labour Party not destroy? If Labour Party could prevent bananas from growing in this country, what can they not do? Now you may laugh at that, but it's not a joke. Pass around St. Lucia today and tell me where you see a banana plantation. We're not sending bananas to England. We hardly export into any of the Caribbean islands, and we're not even getting bananas to eat in St. Lucia. How is that possible? When there was a time when St. Lucia was producing in excess of 120,000 tons of bananas a year. Munki sot kastri. They used to line up banana boxes in Fulasho by the road where people could just pass and pick up bananas. But the demise of the banana industry started when Labour Party got rid of SLBGA and created all of these banana companies as repayment to those who had helped them win the election in 1997. So you have a food shortage crisis. You have a crime escalation crisis. Now, I am always fair in my criticism. We've always had crime in this country. And that is why I'm careful with my words. We have a crime escalation. We've never had that level of criminal activity at any time in the history of St. Lucia as we have seen under Philip J. Pierre and this Labour administration. Never before. And the crimes are scary. I have to acknowledge my political leader. When I heard Tim spoke on his program to say that they have to go out and they are going to set up something to raise $14,500 to help a poor mother. And I can call her poor because she said she is poor. And I believe she did not lie, because and mothers who are here and those listening, there's nothing a mother would not do for their 6-year-old child. Where is the parliamentary representative for Mikud South? Dennery South. Dennery South. Where is the Minister of Health of the St. Lucia Labour Party government? Where is the Prime Minister? That a young child, 6 years old, got shot innocently in the mouth. You can have big artists performing. You can launch an activity that is costing more than $14,500 today. And this poor child has to suffer and wait when right-thinking St. Lucians, generous St. Lucians, will contribute a few dollars. You telling me that a government, and there are women sitting in the cabinet of ministers. I know that could never happen under UWP government with Sarah Flood-Beaubrun in the cabinet. And you are telling me that a government is thinking right? You are telling me that we are comfortable that that innocent child should be made to suffer for that period of time through no fault of the child. And the government could have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on every festival and every activity and not find it in their heart to say the state is going to bear the cost of this surgery and taking care of this child. Now that's why I want to reference my political leader. If Honorable Alan Chastanet was the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Sarah would not have to come and tell him that. I know, because when there was the disaster at Reno, even if Reno was doing everything to campaign against the United Workers' Party, my political leader, Prime Minister, found himself there at the hospital and made arrangements to get these people to Matnik as quickly as possible to try and save their lives. And if Alan Chastanet was the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, that child would have been in Matnik getting the best treatment available within the region. And I'm not saying that to play politics with that. when he was Prime Minister, he helped both UWP and Labour Party people to go to Matnik to get the health care that they needed. And they didn't have to occupy a high position in government. My friend from Labrie, Alva, can tell you. He called me one night and he said to me, I have this person in my constituency. If he does not get to Matnik immediately, he is going to die. Can you speak to the Prime Minister and ask him? I picked up the phone. I called Alan Chastanet, who was Prime Minister. And by the next day, arrangements were made to get that person to Matnik and to save the life of that individual. These are the kind of leaders we need in this country. He could have said, oh, Kamawadalva, Yekitalva. No. He values the life of every St. Lucian, whether you are his supporter or you are against him. And that's the mark of a true leader. You know, it hurts because when you see you cannot afford something and you need it, and that's the sympathy. And sympathy, it's not just sympathy Alan Chastanet has. He has empathy. He puts himself in the place of the person. And I know that this child would never have gone that long. And as a United Workers' Party, we need to get together. I heard about it on Friday, and we are going to raise some money to help this mother with the child. This is not for politics. I don't care who she is. No child in this country deserves what has happened to this child. And so, we have a heartless Labour Party government. And everybody who continues to support Philip J. Pierre and what he is doing to this country, Guamundu, si pan sutuyez, ipan vole. If y'all were not encouraging Philip J. Pierre, he would not do what he is doing there to the people of St. Lucia. So we have the cost of living, the food shortage crisis. We have a crime escalation crisis. We have a cost of fuel crisis. We have a passport crisis. We have a CIP crisis on our hands. We have a money crisis in this country. We have an unemployment crisis. And I was happy when Jimmy explained to them the new formula for calculating who is looking for work and the workforce and the unemployment rate. So if for 6 weeks you are looking for work and you have not found a job, you are no longer calculated as unemployed. You are checked as somebody who is not interested in being employed. So when you hear Pierre come and tell you 11.5%, I'm not passing in the community. Upawe tut munasi zasu blok la. Tut mun badu bosman bai wed. Pantwa vai. Bai move. That is what you hear everywhere. Yet still the government is boasting 11.5% unemployment. Now you know anything Labour says, you can't believe them. Now, we have a judicial crisis in this country. Why is the political leaders' cases against the people he have brought up cases not being called, but the cases against him are being called? So Joachim mene ilodias because Joachim dise pali kita leglis la. And the case is being called. But his cases that have been there for years before, and the judge recused himself, said for political interference, the cases are not being called. So Mr. Mario Michel, I am calling upon you as the acting Chief Justice. Set the record straight. Do not allow politics to influence the judicial system in this country. St. Lucians, we are bordering on a dictatorship in this country. And most and worst of all, we have a healthcare crisis in this country. Now, I like to put things in perspective, and I like you to understand what I say, so that you cannot say these are my words. On page 20 of the 2021 Labour Party Manifesto, number 10, it reads, in demonstration of a Labour Party government commitment to healthcare and the well-being of its citizens, a percentage of GDP will be committed to the maintenance and improvement of St. Lucia's healthcare system. I'm not the one who said it. Philip J. Pierre. And I always tell people, I judge them on what they say. So let's examine this. He never told us he was going to add 2.5%. He said a percentage of GDP, which means GDP is the gross domestic product, the total production of everything in this country. A percentage of it would be taken to go to healthcare. Rather than doing this, what did Philip J. Pierre do? He went and added 2.5% tax on the people of St. Lucia. He lied to us about it, and it is still not being used for healthcare because they reduced the health budget. Now, I always tell you, and Rick always says it, we don't read in this country. If we were reading, nobody is voting for Labour. Now, I will give you what else they said. Universal health care will be implemented within the first term of a Labour Party government. And I told you there's an 85-year-old lady who died in my constituency. And when they went to get the death certificate, they told them they have to pay $4,500. Hey, you do monkey 80 years, free health care. You understand what is happening here? The St. Jude Hospital will be reopened within the shortest possible time. Now, because you see, as a Bible student, I always learned, when you study the Bible, you study precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little, because you don't get all the explanations in one place. So, you use scripture to interpret other scriptures. So when I go to the report that was commissioned by Philip J. Pierre on the hospital, it says that the hospital would be completed within 18 months. That is what John Peters and them said in their report. It will be completed in 18 months. So I assume the shortest possible time was 18 months. Comment l'année a ni dépilé par gouvernement. So he had double. And we are no closer to opening St. Jude than when they started. I want you to understand, because we need to hold Labour accountable. The OKEU hospital, number 4, the OKEU hospital will be adequately resourced with proper emergency services. Now, Philip J. Pierre est supposé la jol hodie. I believe what this government is doing amounts to genocide. People cannot be, and I understand why the doctors are resigning, you know. And while it is affecting us, the doctors must protect their reputation, their integrity, so that they are not sued. Because if people are going to die in their hands at the hospital because they are not the basic equipment and medication. You know, somebody had a surgery, I was told, and the surgery got infected and the person died because there was not enough gauze and other antiseptic required to clean the wound and dress it properly. Can you imagine? Let me tell you, back in the 60s, St. Lucia's healthcare was better than it is under Philip J. Pierre today in 2024. Healthcare has never been so bad. And I cannot understand that the right-thinking St. Lucians, the business people, the lawyers, the teachers, the government workers, because you all are not sick yet, and you all have not had to go to the hospital, you don't have any sympathy or empathy towards these poor people who are suffering every day with a headache and you cannot get a Panadol on ibuprofen at a hospital. And I'm coming because, you see, that's why I wanted to take a different approach. I will leave St. Jude for another time, because I want to take on today the CEO who resigned. You resigned and you ran away, and you said you left the hospital better than you found it. I'm not the one who said it. I'm coming to this because, you know, it is sad that our country can be in this mess and people can come in, get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, and when they are satisfied that they've made a quass on us, they can pack up and leave. And 2 days, you submitted your resignation 2 days after the Medical and Dental Association sent a letter to the board of directors of the OKEU hospital. Now, here's a real leader, Alan Michael Chastanet. In a COVID crisis, when people could not travel, when our nurses were getting sick and had to be quarantined, Alan Chastanet, as Prime Minister, was able to get a plane load of people from Cuba, along with the assistance of the Foreign Minister, Sarah Flood-Beaubrun, at the time. We were able to get nurses and doctors to come to St. Lucia to assist in a pandemic. There was a crisis globally. What has happened now? What are we hearing? There's no global pandemic. The only pandemic we have in St. Lucia is Philip J. Pierre and the St. Lucia Labour Party. That is what is killing so many St. Lucians. It's worse than COVID. So, my political leader was able to fix the problem. And if he was here today, St. Lucia would not be in the crisis situation that it is today. You know, the Labour Party wants us to believe that they are not responsible. But let me tell you this. I like to give, and I heard an earlier speaker, because when we speak about the Labour Party, because of how slow Philip J. Pierre is, we have to define words for him, so he understands what we are saying. A crisis, a disruption or breakdown in a person or family's normal or usual pattern of functioning. A crisis cannot be resolved by a person's customary problem-solving resources or skills. So Philip J. Pierre created the crisis, but Philip J. Pierre cannot solve the crisis. We need Alan Chastanet to fix the crisis that labor has created. You remember Kenny Anthony said something happened that never happened before? That they could not raise money? When Alan Chastanet came into government, within less than 3 years, St. Lucia was back on track to being able to get loans from any financial institution in the world. That is what we talk about, fixing things. So the man tell you he's not a policeman. You think if he's not a policeman, he's a doctor, he is? Huh? Because if to fix the crime problem, you have to be a police. Then who do you need to be to fix the health crisis? So, to solve St. Lucia's problem, we have to go outside of Philip J. Pierre to solve it. PJP by himself is a crisis. So you didn't like retarded? Then I transfer. You are a crisis. And we need to manage that crisis. And there's only one antidote for that crisis, and that's Alan Chastanet. Now, when you see they attack my political leader, you know, so much has been said about the $7 million for the COVID vaccines. Philip J. Pierre said in New York when he went to cabinet, he was going to ask cabinet permission to release the report. Now, I think he's had 2 cabinet meetings since he came from New York. Have we heard the report? Okay. Now, let me tell you where $7 million lies presently. According to the audit report we did on St. Jude, that's why Labor doesn't like me. There are 2 companies in the US. G, that's General Electric, and BIC, BIC, which is Biomedical International Corporation. Hear the amount. General Electric was given $5,848,087.83. And Biomedical International Corporation was given $1,142,288.48 between 2011 and 2014. These 2 companies, and if you add that, it comes roughly to $7 million. We don't have one piece of equipment, and we have not received $1 from these 2 companies. The people who want to call Alan Chastanet and ask him about the $7 million that Philip J. Pierre said he has received a portion of it, and as soon as the case is finished in the US, he will get the balance. I want them to tell me where that $7 million is today. And I want them to challenge me on that information. Because that contract was signed not when Alan Chastanet was in government. That contract was signed between Stevenson King and Kenny Anthony. These were the 2 prime ministers who are responsible. But you all want to choose what you all speak about? Here's the documents on St. Jude, you know. 118 million. And some places, the price went up by 1,000%. Now, people of St. Lucia, it is easy to point fingers at other persons. But I want you to know there are some things in life that we cannot hide away from. I don't want to tell you that it's 1,000% and it's not that, you know. I want to give it to you so you can understand. September 2010 to April 2011, the contract amount given was $277,000. When Kenny Anthony came into office, the contract amount went from $277,000 to $4 million. $887,150. Now that $4 million is not for work, you know. That's for consultancy. That's for the drawings of St. Jude. You heard me? And then they gave them another contract again. And that contract went up by 300%. So it moved from 2.064 million to 6,656,895. Can you believe that? Almost $10 million for drawings of St. Jude that we never got the drawings. And I have the information there that went to DCA. So I want you to understand. The only retrievable application to DCA for approval to retain the use of the St. Jude Hospital is dated 22nd April 2016. So from 2010, a consultant is being paid millions of dollars for drawings. And just before the election in 2016, they submitted the first application to the DCA for the design of St. Jude. Now, if that is not corruption, tell me what is corruption. And I heard Richard Frederick trying to say on a program that if a permanent secretary cannot afford to build 2 villas or 2 apartments at her home, so a permanent secretary can afford to build 2 villas, but Gail as a minister of government could not afford to build 2 villas. I want you to understand. Now, I'm not the one, I saw it like everybody else. There is a contract issued for $99,000 for work at a Monrepo cemetery that never happened. No, the work, I'm telling you, work was done in the Monrepo cemetery, but the work was not done, you're right, by that contractor, because the contractor who did the work got paid for the work that he did. And the contractor knows that no other contractor worked. Is it coincident that that contractor was working at a certain PS home building apartments? So, if Fresh Start was building a house for Guy Joseph and he got a contract, was Bobble. So that one is what? And Richard Frederick wants to tell employees in this country who you can have dinner with and who you can have a chat with. Are we a communist country? Richard, you know what you're afraid of? That's what you're afraid of. You forget you getting files from the police, so you didn't know one day people would get files on you too. You see, if you live in glass house, don't throw stones. So, Mr. Richard Frederick, you can give all explanations. And I know more than what I'm saying here tonight. Because some people in your office say, is not that the work was done, was in Viewfort, but we know the work that was done in Viewfort was still done by another contractor, not that contractor. So, I want you, when you come on your program on Thursday, you always have documents. Come with the documents. You ever see a road being built and the cost of disposal of material is higher than the cost of the road itself? You know what is disposal? Not to dig the material. Pour tirer terre yo fouiller ay jeter là, ka cost pli passe pour fouiller terre, concrete chimère. 43,000 for disposal of material. out of the 99,000. I have the total breakdown. Now I want you to understand. When you guamundi leon kakodo usipose ve pulapli. So Richard un kakodo gade pulaplia. Because it is time that we hold those who are in government accountable for what they are doing to this country. And we don't have to hide. All of us worked with Richard. We know what he gives. We know what he takes. Okay? All of us. The only person who was afraid of him was Stevenson King. And I can say this beyond a shadow of a doubt. When he used to bring his things that Steve didn't really want to pass, Steve would call me and tell me, Guy, when this thing comes, I want you to oppose it for me. Because he was not man enough to oppose it himself. And you, Stevenson King, challenge me on this. Because I'm not the only one. You know, I will tell you something. One day, 2 ministers in his government came with something to take all the lands in St. Lucia. Spider knows that, Alan knows that. All the land in St. Lucia that belongs to the crown, to government, to all private entities or public entities that belong to government. And they said they put in all that land in one company and they're going to mortgage it and take a loan to clear the debts of St. Lucia. Let me tell you something. That's why I said it long before. Guy Joseph and going back in no government with Stevenson King. There are no leader. Okay? So I said, Steve, you can't let that thing, you should not even let that go on paper, you know. If that go on paper, when Labour Party sees, he tell me, don't worry, that's not coming. Next cabinet meeting, memo comes to cabinet to do that. You know who had to oppose it? The rest of us in cabinet. Because Steve sitting in the chair and he can't say a word. I don't know what Richard had on him. I don't know what Rufus had on him. Whatever they had on him, they had it. But at the end of the day, we stood in that cabinet. There were men and women of integrity in the cabinet of the United Workers' Party. And so we saved St. Lucia a lot of embarrassment. But you know what? The Labour Party targeted a few of us to make us look bad. And people fell for that. But I want to let you know that Alan Chastanet is a remarkable leader. He's an empathetic leader. And in our manifesto, you can go and see it. There's $75,000 for health care. That was promised. 5 for 5. That is the last point I will touch on. UWP to the rescue. Every St. Lucian should be able to access affordable, quality health care. That's on page 49 of the UWP manifesto. No matter who they are, we will introduce national health insurance with up to $75,000 in benefit per person per year. It will be free for the elderly, the vulnerable, single, unemployed mothers, and those with special needs. I say, to solve the crisis in St. Lucia, we need to bring back Alan Chastanet and the health crisis will be resolved. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Guy. Just by the way, we are 700 and something, and the Labour Party is still at 300 and something. I suspect I suspect we're beginning to get a glimpse of the margin of victory we're going to have at the next one. Yes, thank you, Guy, for exposing it. Guy said he does not know what Richard Frederick has on Stephenson King, but I have said a long time ago, Stephenson King is compromised. And that is why. But you know, I just want to issue a warning to Labour Party, because you see, they keep saying I'm against them. If they listen to me well, they will realize I'm not against them, you know. I'm issuing a warning to them. A snake will change its skin, but it does not change its character. You will find out when Stephenson King finishes with them. Because this is a man who will sit with you, smile with you, eat and drink with you, and then he'll stab you in the back. Wait and see. And you will see not too long from now, Labour will find out the hard way. But at the end of the day, before I call the final speaker for tonight's Flabo Live, I just want to remind you of a few upcoming events. The first and most important is that on the 26th of this month, we have a grand community night, a grand fundraiser. So please get your tickets. I was trying to see if I could sell a few tickets, but there are so many people with tickets. So you shouldn't have any problems getting a ticket. Check, there are people around here right now who have tickets, and those of you who listen to me on the live, check the secretariat. They will let you know they should have tickets, or they will let you know where to get a ticket. But be sure to have a ticket, and the event is next Saturday. So early this week, purchase your ticket to participate in our community night. And Flabo's community night is always a big, fun-filled event. Imagine I won something there one time. You know, first time in my life I ever win any raffle or anything like that. Now, so you know how it is. I want to invite you to participate in this because it's important that we begin to prepare and gear ourselves. So it will not only be a social gathering, a family gathering, it will also be a fundraising event. At the same time, we have to keep the fire burning, keep the torch alight. Tomorrow night, I invite you to join me on Like It Is, on Hot 7 TV, on Kiss FM radio, and on Facebook, where we'll be shedding more light on the truth about what is happening in this country. On Tuesday morning at about 10 o'clock, we have our news brief, where you can join us on Facebook for our brief on a Tuesday morning. On Thursday morning, we have Meet the Opposition. It starts at about 9 in the morning until 11, so you can join us there. On Thursday night, we have Roundtable. And again, you can join us on Roundtable, where we tell you, like, well, the truth is, no, it's not like it is. It's a different program, Roundtable, where we shed light on the truth. Because, you know, you hear so many lies now. Your Prime Minister has been so consistent in lying that I have a special segment of my talk show called SLP, Secret Lies and Propaganda. And every week I'll be giving you some of those lies that they're telling you. I also want to remind you that next Saturday is a community event, I can't say it enough, and then Sunday we'll have our usual Flabo Live again. So stay tuned to the Flabo, because that is where the action is, that's where it's happening, and that is St. Lucia's best hope to save our country and our people from the disaster that Labour has us going through. So now, ladies and gentlemen, to bring down the curtains, I want to bring you a person who has vision. Not the deck guy was talking about. Not the deck guy was talking about. I want to bring you someone who has vision, someone who has a plan, someone who has leadership qualities, someone who has demonstrated that as Prime Minister of the country, he could run the country. And he went through the worst tests that any leader has gone through in the history of this country, when we had the COVID pandemic, and he came through this with distinction. He went through this with flying colors, bright yellow. And so, after that performance, where in 3 years, because effectively we had 3 years, COVID took 2. Effectively, in 3 years, this man transformed St. Lucia. I want to remind you that we reduced the unemployment rate in St. Lucia. We increased the number of people on the paupers list. We provided you sports facilities. We improved the healthcare system. We improve the security of this country through the lab that we opened, through the border patrol that we had going on, the scanners that we had, the K9 unit that we had, all of which has disappeared right now. I want to present to you the answer to our problems. And anytime you face a crisis, you need leadership to get out of it. And so now, I will bring to you your next Prime Minister, the Honorable Alan Michael Chastanet, who will close the show for us tonight.
You don't win a gold medal by wanting to win. You must believe you can win. You must train every day to win. So if we want to have a great country, we must believe that we can have a great country. We must want it every day to have a great country, and we must be prepared to work every day.
Good evening, everyone. I find it more and more difficult every time, every week, to deal with the crisis that has been put forward tonight. Because every time that we think that we're going to settle down and to be able to focus on one crisis, in less than 1 week, we find ourselves now having to deal with many more crises. When we said in the campaign that the Labour Party was beating pans and had no plans, you see how true that was? What is worse is after winning the election, you'd have thought the first thing they would have done is taken their time and to put a plan together. 3.5 years later, there's still no evidence of a plan for the country. That's my emphasis. There is no plan for the country. But what we are seeing is that they had a plan always for themselves. Because it's the only explanation. It cannot be that a government has come in and we have a crisis in healthcare. We have a crisis in national security. We have a crisis in agriculture. Every single infrastructure program that is being implemented in this country has a story. There's nothing straightforward. How can you explain the Millennium Highway? 4 years to pave a road that already existed? A roundabout? And it's so absurd that a bridge was built faster than a road that already existed was going to be paved. In fact, we had a bridge that stayed there with no road. The bridge was waiting. Rodney Bay Highway. They came and told us that there was bobble at Shock and Tavern Housing Developments. 3 years later, they came in and had to renegotiate with the same Fresh Start at a higher price. And when Richard Frederick would say that he was going to eat his vomit, we told them, we don't want you to eat your vomit. We want you to eat the money that it cost the people of St. Lucia. That's what we want you to eat. Don't pass it on to everybody else. You eat it. You made the mistake. We sit here with Banan's land. Do people know that something went wrong? Everybody can see it for themselves. A piece of land that has no price, has no value, a piece of land that should remain in the hands of the government of St. Lucia, whether it was housing, whether it was SLASPA, whether it was Invest St. Lucia, I don't care. But it should have never been sold for $2.6 million to we don't know who. Because Richard Frederick has sued me and said I called him a thief and all kinds of things he said I called him. And I have now access to the minutes of the meeting that took place at Housing. And the minutes of the meeting said the land was sold to Reno Gajada. That's what the minutes say. And it said a letter came in from Gordon and Gordon to support the bid offer from Reno Gajada. But when you now see the letter, because we asked for the letter came and the offer was from a company called Smile Bit, which has no directors. But when you go down to the registry, the land is registered in the name of Gifter Eugene. Now, anybody who knows anything about government and law knows you can't have three different entities. The board approved the sale of the land to Reno Gajada. The same Reno Gajada that found himself on Timothy Pollion's show saying what? That a real estate agent came to him and offered him and he didn't want to buy it. So who did he turn around to? That he sold it. He told his daughter to go and buy it. You see lie? What is more interesting is Reno said that there was a real estate agent. And Richard said that the person that put the deal together was Catherine Seals, the same one that the car got robbed and the commissioner of police went and found himself at her home. The same person. Who was a board director on Housing. Not done yet. Sister Sarah is here. Sister Sarah influenced us, the government, to purchase a building on the chaussee. Not true? Didn't we buy a building, the government of St. Lucia acquired a building on the chaussee? Yes, we did. Right? Instead of using that building or any other building that government already had to put the National Housing Office, instead what did they do? They turned around and purchased the building that was owned by Petra Nelson, who is the lawyer on housing. Wait a second. The lawyer on housing and best friends with Catherine Seals. So I want to know, did Catherine get a commission for selling the land to, let me see, was it Reno Gajada? Was it Smile Bit? Or was it Gifter Eugene? I don't know which one. And then she then turned around and get another commission by getting the housing board to turn around and purchase the building from Petra Nelson, who is the lawyer on housing. So when Guy Joseph now brings up this other issue that's just taken place, how can you give a contract for just under $100,000? Why? Because that's the limit of not having to be transparent. And you give the contract to do work that was already being done by somebody else who's being paid. Then when you get caught, you turn around and you say it is in view fort. And then when you now find out that somebody else was paid to do that job, what's the story going to be tomorrow? To find out that the same contractor that got the contract is the same person who is doing the house for the permanent secretary in housing. Now, Bradley Felix in the House asked Richard Frederick, where is the money that was allocated to my constituency for the housing? Now, I asked that question because I have stood on this podium repeatedly and said to St. Lucia and to all of us what is taking place in this country. That the government is either corrupting or intimidating public servants. That they are corrupting or intimidating the judiciary. And that they are corrupting or intimidating the civil society. So when you have your permanent secretary in the same minister's office, who is the key officer for signing off on contracts, I'm not saying anything took place, but it begs the question, what is going on and how was the money being spent that was allocated by CDB and the World Bank for housing development in this country? And I'm asking, and I will write, for the Auditor General to do a special audit on the housing and the housing ministry. And again, we are calling for people to do the right thing, to right the wrong. Right the wrong by suspending the permanent secretary in housing and allowing that audit to take place immediately as to what has happened. And I want to say, that's not the worst thing that happened on Richard's show on Thursday. And you notice I have not spoken about Richard's show in a long time. That's not the worst thing. The worst thing is that we have a health crisis in the Castries Basin. And I want us to understand this, okay? The representative for Castries East is the Prime Minister of the country. The representative for Castries South is the Deputy Prime Minister of St. Lucia. That the representative for Castries North is the Senior Minister in the Cabinet. And the representative from Castries Central is the person who wants to be the Prime Minister of this country. And not one of these men have recognized the crisis that's taking place with their own constituents. Masha Healthcare Center is closed. The Castries Healthcare Center on the Chaussee is closed. I remember going to the La Clary Healthcare Center, which, if I'm not mistaken, is it closed now too? It's closed. It's a disaster. And it's full of mosquitoes. I remember, I don't want to go away from the story, but I remember when we had COVID, and we had several healthcare centers that were identified as major treatment centers. And one thing I've learned from Sir John, when people used to think that Sir John was in Maho, Sir John was going around the island and visiting all the different projects that would be coming up in cabinet. So his ministers learned very, very fast that when Sir John asks you a question, more than likely he already knew the answer. I come from that same school. I don't take anything for granted. When we implement a policy at cabinet, I know how long it takes for it to get down to the bottom and whether in fact it's being implemented the right way. And I remember during that period going to the La Clary Station, healthcare center. The fan was not working. The blood pressure machine was not working. There was not enough chairs because they had to separate people. They were putting them on the outside. The computer was not working because remember in those days they were having to enter all the people that were coming there. I went to M&C Home Depot. I bought chairs. I bought fans. I went and got a blood pressure machine, and I called up the IT people to say I want to see a computer there the following day. And I told them I will be there first thing in the morning to make sure that that computer is there. Now what shocked me was Steve's office was
2 buildings away. But I'm a team player. I didn't make an issue of it. I just fixed it. Now, I'm saying that to you, that here you have the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Senior Minister, and the want-to-be Prime Minister. Amongst the 4 of them, for the whole of Castries, that you now have one functioning healthcare center. It's called OKEU. At your own risk. Okay? Now, the Medical and Dental Association, not me, not any Zelev, the Medical and Dental Association, in July 31st, wrote a letter. And I'm just going to highlight some of the critical points here. It says, the consensus of the physician body is that the board of directors, ostensibly tasked with the drafting policy to allow for the efficient running of the hospital, has failed miserably in said task. Has failed miserably in said task. The focus of significant proportion of the board's membership appears to be solely on micromanagement and creating a toxic work environment, as opposed to ensuring that conditions are in place to guarantee the best possible care to the patients who present to our institution, our fellow St. Lucians. We have often lamented the lack of research, how are physicians expected to treat life-threatening illnesses without the basic drugs that allow us to provide standard of care of management? When the proverbial wheel falls off the wagon and these critical decisions have to be made or the necessary drugs have to be sourced, it is the private sector, Tapio Hospital, which has stepped in all too often, providing supplies free of cost or trusting that the family will dig up the funds from somewhere to pay it later. That's doctors telling you that, you know. That's not Facebook. That's not Instagram. That's not Mepui. This is a letter from the Medical and Dental Association of St. Lucia telling you what the doctors are experiencing on July 31st. Many of us have worked and sacrificed tirelessly at VH and OKEU for close to more than 20 years. And we can categorically say, and it's underlined in capital letters, bold, never has it been this bad. We've always been under-resourced, understaffed, and overworked. But for this myriad of problems, there was a sense of community. Staff did not feel ostracized and vilified. Going above and beyond the heights of the COVID-19 pandemic and countless other critical periods was just a natural thing to do, as there was an intimate understanding that it was in the service of the community. This current climate, however, has caused so much unrest and frustration that many feel helpless and are at their wits' end and are ready to resign. Is the board at all concerned about the fact that 4 senior consultants and multiple junior physicians have resigned over the last few months? Or about the continued mass migration of our beloved nurses? What measures have been put in place to halt this exodus of clinical staff? Or is it the board, the view that the saying that the physicians drop the ball will suffice? And faced with this crisis, the Prime Minister stood in front of the TV and laughed and said, people are always accustomed to going to greener pastures. Really? His constituents, the Deputy Prime Minister's constituents, the Senior Minister's constituents, and the want-to-be Prime Minister of St. Lucia, his constituents. So if that is what the board felt, is that what they also feel? That it's okay? The citizens of St. Lucia deserve better. The current conditions are unacceptably dangerous and inevitably will lead to undesirable outcomes. Are you aware, or do you even care, that many patients, when referred, are uttering the heart-wrenching words, and I quote, "I prefer to go home and die than go to OKEU." How can we sleep knowing that this is the plight of our people? Equitable, accessible, and affordable healthcare is a fundamental human right to which every citizen of St. Lucia is entitled. The current situation on the ground at OKU cannot be allowed to continue. In bold capital letters, we demand better. St. Lucia demands and deserves better. We will not continue to stand by and make do with what is available, only then to be publicly maligned by some of your own members, when outcomes are less than favorable. And here's the clincher. July 31st. July 31st. We're in October 20th or 22nd. Am I right? How many months is that? August, September, 3 months. 3 months have gone by. But back in October, it said, we reiterate, you need to step up or step out. And 3 months later, more doctors and nurses have left. And my understanding is that even some of the doctors that have come from foreign countries, they themselves now have reached the point they can't take it anymore, and they have also left this week. And Guy is right, Honorable Guy Joseph, when he said that Dr. Dexter James, the CEO, who has left, should be embarrassed and ashamed of himself. Leave as a man. You want to leave, leave. I have more respect for you for that. But then to come out and say, we expanded our supply chain, we've restored goodwill with a number of creditors, they've opened back accounts for us, they've given us credit terms, they've given us credit lines, so the platform was set for the future development of the hospital. And that's why I feel comfortable that the decision not to renew, although it was very personal, would have left the facility in a better state than it was 2 years ago. What? Maybe that's how it was in Trinidad. But that's not how it was in St. Lucia. That's right. That is the fear of intimidation and corruption. And I'm sure in order to get a favorable letter and possibly be paid a bonus for the nonsense that he did here in St. Lucia, he had to go now and he had to become a Zelev. How can you compare the two letters? And one letter that was written in July 31st, everything that they have predicted has come to pass. And this dream that this dreamer is trying to sell all of us is for his own personal self-interest, not for the interest of St. Lucians.
Now, back to Thursday. You would have thought with a show called, what's it called? Can I Help You? That he would have spent the time on the show to deal with this crisis. To have laid the affairs of his own people from Castries Central. Now remember, no Castries Healthcare Center, no Marsha Health Center, and that everybody has to go to OKEU. And we've heard stories of people going up there and there's not enough beds already. So any kind of emergency that you have, you are now being put further at risk, because instead of being able to go to a healthcare center to deal with you, you now have to go and take a line of people who are coming in who were shot, people who were stabbed, people who have been in car accidents, people who can't get help in other constituencies. Everybody is coming to OKU, and that's the line you have to take. And the Prime Minister from Castries East, the Deputy Prime Minister from Castries South, the Senior Minister from Castries North, and the want-to-be Prime Minister from Castries Central, all who have their titles, want to convince any of us, and particularly their own constituents, that they care. This is not laughable. It's nothing to laugh at. And certainly when you are all of a sudden confronted with a health crisis, it's even less. But it's made worse by the fact that the representation that you're supposed to have does not care. They used to call, and still call, Philip Pierre Ray Charles for a reason. He can't see. I rather now say, pardon. What further explanation does anyone have to give as to why this government should be forced out of office right now? Forget about all the other crises. Just on healthcare, a basic human right, that if in fact in your own Castries Basin where all those Gopichas are, and they cannot move, they cannot have any sense of urgency to deal with it, what about the rest of us? How can you get it so wrong? And then you have a Minister of Health who failed at agriculture, although that's what he was trained for, is now trying to pretend by using some big words that he's mastered the dialogue of healthcare. Non-communicable diseases and this and everything is moving and everything's going to be okay. And don't worry about it. And you know what? The mold that was in this healthcare center in Babonneau, we're going to go and resolve. So the mold only came today. It's only today that the nurses have been complaining at Babonneau Healthcare Center. Only today. You have to wait for them to put down their tools, make the people in the constituency suffer, before now you want to come and tell us that it's being done. But here's a problem, and I'm going to talk about it in more detail. There's nothing that this government says that we can trust. They told us the 2.5% was for health and security. We now know that was a lie. It's not true. They told us that we needed chemical and paint to fix up St. Jude's, and we could be there in 3 months. That was a lie. They said there was bobble on the Millennium Highway, on the Roddy Bay Road. They said a shock and a tavern. Those were lies. By all of them. Because Richard was speaking for them. When Richard speaks on his show, he speaks for the Labour Party. How is it the government has not been able to get a plan to deal with crime? The same plan, you see how it comes back and starts making sense? We said, let us learn from COVID. We had a crisis in COVID, could not wait. So what did we do is we created a command center. What's a command center? A command center meets every single week, all the key people. Attorney General's office, the Ministry of Finance, police, ambulance, everybody is there. And you're measuring the performance of your work on a weekly basis. And you're determining and using information to put the emphasis where it should be. Don't you believe that the lives that have been lost are worth that kind of crisis management? We have a crisis. Now I want to say that we are underestimating the number of victims that we've had for crime in this country. It's not the 75 victims that were killed. Let's take a young kid in my constituency, Mello. The victim was his mother. The victims were his 3 sisters and his brother. The victims were his classmates in school. The victim are all the neighbors. The victims are the ambulance drivers and the nurses and the doctors. They are all victims. Every single one of them. And we now have this young girl who was shot in Dennery South. She's not the only victim. Her mother has become a victim. The other family members who are in stress because they don't have the resources to help the mother, they are victims. Now remember, the same Labour Party convinced everybody that Alan Chastanet and United Workers' Party did away with the distress fund. You've heard that over and over and over again. And we said we just didn't call it a distress fund. It was called a contingency fund. And it was much bigger than just the $500,000. But you see, that's the half-truth. And nobody wants to take the time and say, okay, well, I know, Alan, why would United Workers' Party do that? Because we wanted to make the fund bigger. And there was a special fund for health care. And United Workers' Party, I'm proud of this, we're spending approximately $8 million a year to help support people in need. $8 million. And every day when I was going to Parliament or passing in town, there was a particular gentleman that was vending by the Princery. And he had the unfortunate accident of being electrocuted. You remember? And we all looked at the horrific pictures in cabinet. His whole face had been burnt off. And while it was not life-threatening, it certainly would have had an impact on his quality of life moving forward. And we ended up sending him to Colombia. And I think it cost over 40 or 50,000 US dollars. There are persons with heart failures. And we ended up sending them to Cayman, to Martinique. And we never allowed money to be a problem. And I remember every year as we got to the end of the budget, how heart-wrenching it was to have known that we had come close to $8 million. And there was no more money at the end of the day to be able to help more people. So it is absolutely unacceptable in this country, under the circumstances we are living in now, and the condition in which the young girl was shot, that we would have to be hearing in the news weeks later that she's looking for $14,000 to be able to get an operation, and we have nothing to say as people in this country? No, I say no. Let us right the wrong. Let us right the wrong. Let us be better than that. And let us not accept that. How is she supposed to fend for herself? Do we put her through the humiliation of having to come on radio to admit that she's a poor woman and to admit that she cannot do it? But you see, you don't start caring once you get into government, and you have to use taxpayers' money to do it. A person who cares has always cared and will always find ways to help. That's why I'm proud. And when I came back home in 2003, I just opened up Coco Creole. And I heard a heart-wrenching story of a father whose daughter was losing her sight. I just had my daughter. And he was in tears because he was begging for money to help his daughter. Anybody, the doctors had no solution to the problem here in St. Lucia. That's right. That's what empathy is. Empathy is to put yourself. If I was a father and I could not help my daughter, I would be heartbroken. I would crack under that pressure. My daughter? The one thing I'm supposed to do is to take care of her. I cannot do it. So within a couple of days, I did a fundraiser. The Grammy Awards were coming, and we did a big party at Coco Creole. We raised money. I called friends of mine at the University of Miami, and I organized for that young girl to go there. And it was years later when I was traveling back, and that father met me in the plane, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You don't remember me?" I said, "No, I don't remember you, sir." He said, "I'm the father of the young girl that was going blind." I said, "Oh, how is she?" He said, "The University of Miami was able to save her sight, and she's now just finishing high school." But if you notice, I did not follow up. I just did it. I don't want anything for myself. But I'm in government today because I believe that government has a responsibility to do those things for the people of St. Lucia. And the hundreds of hours we spent in the cabinet room with all the people to deal with health was about how we're going to make it affordable. That's the question. So some people wanted to increase the NIC contribution. But ultimately we decided the best way to go was a healthcare insurance. A dedicated fund of money just for the hospital. And let's stop the fight. If we had to put the insurance to pay for everything in healthcare, salaries, utilities, everything, the premium would be too high. So you say, you know what? Government is accustomed right now to paying the salaries. Let's pay the salaries. So whether they're the Millennium as a statutory agency, whatever, we'll pay the salaries. We'll pay the utilities, and government will pay the capital cost. So those of you who have had insurance before, it's a very simple process. You go and you get a service at the hospital, and you fill out the form. The form is to keep a record of what happened. And that is what allows the hospital to draw down on the money available for your service. So once you know each person's services are being paid for, then the next person who comes, there is money to replace the medicine. There's money to replace the syringe. There's money to replace the IVs. And so it allows the hospital to function. That's the difference. Today they want to come and fool you and tell you about universal health care. And as Guy said, no details. No details. It's nonsense. So we have a crisis in this country called healthcare. It's made even further a deeper crisis because if you have a situation where the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, Senior Minister, and want-to-be Prime Minister are all being affected more than anywhere else in the country, and they're saying and doing nothing, that is how bad the crisis is in our country. And the only way that they're going to get it is what Spider just said. Words alone are not going to solve this problem. We need to act collectively together and tell the government that we intend to right the wrong, and we will come out and protest and to force you to do the right thing. And the Prime Minister keeps fooling himself. He says it over. He's the one who gets to call when the elections are. I have news for you, Mr. Prime Minister. The people are the ones that are going to decide when the election is going to be. Just don't believe that you can continue running the country the way you're running and that people are going to sit silently by, even your own supporters, because there comes a time when enough is enough. I did not want to have to deal with CIP tonight. I noticed nobody brought it up tonight. But there's something special happening on Tuesday. So we have a House session in which the Minister of CIP has indicated to the public of St. Lucia we should all be happy because he's going to give this statement. I want to say this to all of us so that you start to condition yourself. Okay? What he's going to give is what's called a minister's statement. So a minister's statement is before the House gets into its normal agenda, a minister is allowed to give a report. There'll be no questions. There's no rebuttal. And we're not allowed to use the information that comes up in the statement in any of the things that are going to come up that particular day. So that's right. So we have to now sit and listen, and more importantly, that the expectation is that we are supposed to just believe him. Okay? Now let's just think about that for a moment. Here's a man who lied about Jufali. Never told us that there was an ambassador, never told us or admitted that he was involved with the whole thing. Even when Timothy Polion had asked him, does Jufali have a diplomatic passport? He weaved and he bobbed and this and that and asked all kind of counter questions. And we showed the letter where he's the person who requested the diplomatic passports. The diplomatic passports were delivered to him and he's the one who gave them to Dr. Jafali. He said there was no joint account. I don't know what he wants to call it. An account was opened up called the St. Lucia High Commission IMO account, and the signatories on the account were him and Dr. Jafali. We saw a letter from the Auditor General. The Auditor General did a review and said no permission had ever been given to open up the account, which is what is in the Financial Act. Well, the money went to the account. And the money that went into the account left the account and some of it went to his account. Okay? So he lied about all that. He lied about the car. He committed fraud. He used his position as the High Commissioner with no permission and registered the car in the name of the High Commission. And then he allowed the car to be put into his container and brought to St. Lucia. Bring some news to you tonight. He has a habit of that. So we have in the CIP, where the CIP obtained a duty-free car from the government of St. Lucia. All right? And the car was registered in a particular license number. And the car then was given to the minister to drive. Now,
we know that when that happens in government and it's gotten to a government, the logo of the ministry of the entity has to be on the side of the car. So what I'd like to know is that there's a logo on the car that he's driving that says CIP. No. They went and changed the license plate on that car to a different license plate. So the question is, why does he always find himself in this mess? Why? Now you have the situation ongoing with CIP. And I've said, when he gives his report, and let me tell you the next trick to get prepared for. The audit report that is going to be presented in the House is for April 2022. Listening to me? April 2022 to March of 2023. That's 16 months, am I right? Ago? A long time ago. Okay? In fact, it's so long ago that the report for 2023 to 2024, wait a second, from April of 2023 to March of 2024 is already due. It's past due. Now, the report does not include anything to do with infrastructure program. The report does not have any audit on the escrow account. So if he comes and wants to make any statements to say to everybody in St. Lucia that everything is okay, and here's the report, I'm warning all of you in advance that he's back up to his own old tricks again. If a government can try to convince us against what we can see for ourselves, BMAX, you go and research it yourself. The man went to jail. He's out on bail. And you want to come and minimize it by saying, oh, he sold his shares? What nonsense is that? Up to 30 days ago, the man was still the director of the company, and the shares were owned by BMAX. He went and checked that out? No, I asked the minister. The same minister that they call Hilaire? There's nothing that Ernest Hilaire says that you can trust. There's nothing. And it's an insult to all of us that he would be the person going to the House to make a report of which nobody can ask him any questions, just so he can say, I gave a report. We don't trust you. The report is Pabo. It has to be. The report is going to say what you want to hear it say, not the truth. Prime Minister, stop playing games with St. Lucia. Put a stop to the CIP program. Fire the CEO. Fire the board. Because Lauren Theophilus doesn't know if he's in or out. What's interesting is that the audited report is not signed by the chairman. It's signed by the deputy chairman and want to be run for Castries Central. What's his name? Julian Charles. Okay? The chairman didn't sign it. That report left me asking more questions than ever before. How can you have a report and not audit the escrow account? How can you do all those things? So I'm going to say to all of us, this country is in serious trouble. I believe that I should not have to ask. I should not have to suggest. But Parliament is on Tuesday. And I think that that's a very good day for the people of St. Lucia to start to show this government that they're not waiting for anybody to right the wrong.
It is your right individually to protest. It is your right to stand up in this country. Nobody has to apply individually to come to Parliament. It's your Parliament. Remember, they said the same thing. Nobody can stop them from going to the Parliament. If you care about health care and what is happening in this country, if you care about what's taking place in crime in this country, if you believe that the government is mismanaging the economy and overtaxing the people of this country and not taking care of people based on what is happening with the cost of living, if you think that you're not getting any answers about St. Jude's or HIA or where the money has gone from the NLA, if you are concerned that the government would want to spend $300 million at a time like this on a halls of justice in the middle of the town. As I said to you, it's the size of the Daher Mall plus 2 floors. And to take something like our cathedral and to minimize it, to marginalize it, if you are against those things, I'm saying to all of us, it is time for us to take a stand. I don't care if it's 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. I will stand on the other side with you. I've told you. My wife and my father and my family know that as a father, as a husband, and as a son, and as a family member, I will always be there and I can be counted on. And I say to St. Lucia, you are my brothers and sisters. You are my family. I will hold your hand. I will stand there with you. It doesn't matter to me, but there's enough evidence against this government, and it's time for us to right the wrong. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is our leader. That is our next Prime Minister. And I just want to say one word before I continue. I will be there. How about you? I will be there. On Tuesday, I will be there. You mentioned a number of things and you asked if we care. I care about all of that and more. I will be there. Ladies and gentlemen, before I close, let me just remind you, this month is Creole Heritage Month. Let's not let this Flabo Live end without me saying a couple things in Creole. Moi, je veux faire tout le monde changer. Si maintenant qui va venir, nous allons commencer demain au soir avec Like It Is, ça c'est un talk show, moi gagné à sur Hot 7 TV avec Kiss FM. Mardi, nous avons News Brief qui a commencé à priver 10 heures en Facebook. Jeudi bon matin, à sous Meet the Opposition, nous avons commencé 9h bon matin pour 11h. Avec jeudi au soir, nous avons Round Table qui a commencé à priver 8h30. 8h30. Avec samedi, nous avons un grand soirée commune. Nous voulons tout le monde participer à ça, acheter ticket et faire assurer ou là. Nous avons boisson, nous avons manger, nous avons danser, nous avons jouer. Nous avons gagné prize avec tout le bagage comme ça. Fait assis ou gagner un ticket parce que la ticket est valable parmi ces gens qui ici à Oswea. La ticket est valable en secrétariat là aussi. So nous avons invité tout le monde pour venir. Avec avant moi dire en anglais, qui nous remercier tout le monde qui sorti Oswea pour attendre Flambeau Live là Oswea. Avec moi remercier tout le monde qui est en diaspora avec l'autre place en cette ici qui a vu nous live en le Facebook. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I express our deepest gratitude and appreciation to you for showing up this evening to our Flabo Live session. And I want to thank all of those who have been following us on live stream. We ask you to continue standing with the United Workers' Party. We ask you to continue standing for your country. We ask you to continue standing for the future and continue following the United Workers' Party who brings the truth to light, who shines the light of the torch to lead you back to development and progress in this country. And those of you out there listening to my voice right now, if you care about your country, let us begin to take a stand. Enough talking. On Tuesday, meet me by the Parliament. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.